Hey, creepy crew. Before we dive in, just wanted to say thank you for watching. You guys are absolute legends. Don't forget to like the video and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I'm currently in Austin, Texas. Where are you? I got back from the laundromat with a heavy bag cutting into my fingers. Dropped it next to the chair and tossed my hoodie over the backrest without really thinking. My plan was to zone out for the rest of the afternoon. I opened the app just to send one of those dumb filters with the dog ears to Liana. Nothing serious. Just bored. She replied in, 2 seconds. Video already recorded like she was waiting for a prompt. She was cleaning the kitchen, and everything looked normal except for one weird flicker when she turned toward the microwave. The door caught a quick glare, and something moved behind her. Barely a frame. Looked like a shape more than anything. Thought it was just some camera glitch, but I saved the video anyway. The internet had been lagging lately, so I shoved my laptop onto the little table near the window where the signal was better. One of those wobbly wooden ones with a soft corner dent. My fingers knocked into a can of Coke someone had left open earlier. The metallic click as it tipped over sounded way louder than it should have. Outside the glass, the sky looked heavy and greasy, like it was holding off rain that never came. I pressed play again on the video and paused at the dark smudge near the side of her open back porch. It wasn't part of the kitchen. It was just outside, near the screen door she always leaves propped open for the dog. I zoomed in. The blur had shape. Rounded top, dark color. Not a shadow. It was a shoulder, slightly turned, and above it, the edge of a baseball cap. The color was navy or black. Hard to tell, but it was a person. Someone standing just off her porch, still as hell. Watching. I stared at it for a few seconds, trying to explain it away. Maybe a neighbor? Maybe someone walking by? But the porch was fenced. No path ran behind it. I texted her. Hey, look right. Think someone's on your porch. 3 dots popped up. Then she sent a new clip. She was laughing, switching to the front cam, saying, "What? You trying to freak me out? Don't make me think there's a serial killer out here." But her hand, the one holding a mug, was jittering. I noticed the shimmer of tea spilling down the side. She switched off mid-sentence, like she heard something. The next message came maybe 40 seconds later. Just one sentence. Barricaded in mudroom, hear voice, calling my name. That was it. No emoji, no follow-up. I called her instantly. The tone rang, then fizzled out. I tried again. On the second ring, some loud sound blasted in the background, like a siren, far but sharp. Not from her phone, from her street. The call dropped. When I checked my screen, I saw she had already contacted 911. The status bar showed the emergency call icon. I sat still, listening to the hallway of my dorm. Some freshman couple was arguing on the far end. Someone else slammed a door. But I kept thinking about the guy in the hat. How long had he been standing there? I replayed the clip again and watched her reflection. Then the microwave door, frame by frame. He hadn't moved. Just stood there, facing in. Police lights flashed outside her windows. I saw them in real time because she had left her camera running. It was still streaming, the angle low and tilted. Probably her phone wedged on the laundry shelf. From somewhere off camera, a voice yelled out, "Let me in, he's coming back." It wasn't her. It was a man, breathless, voice cracked. The dispatcher's voice was faint in the background, asking questions, trying to keep him talking. Through the broken phrases, it became clear. The guy was a neighbor, injured, barely able to speak. He was trying to find shelter, bleeding, his shirt soaked dark. Liana was crouched between the washer and dryer, her hand pressed over her mouth, trying not to make a sound. Her eyes stared dead ahead, not blinking. My fists were clenched so hard against the counter that the sound of my knuckles cracking echoed in the quiet room. Her name in the chat app kept blinking, Green, then gray, then green again, like a heartbeat. I couldn't stop watching. Every flicker of her name, every lag of the stream, made it feel like something was about to go wrong. I didn't know how long she'd been frozen like that. Maybe 3 minutes, maybe 15. Time had collapsed. In the corner of the screen, a comment notification popped up from one of her older posts. Someone had written, "Congrats on the new kitchen." It was supposed to be a joke. Now it felt like something else entirely. I watched her eyes dart toward the door once, and then the feed cut to black. About 30 minutes later, she called me. Her voice was hoarse, but she was standing in her living room. Behind her, the flashing lights of an ambulance lit up the walls. The colors kept shifting over her face. Red, white, red again. A police officer's voice came through, confirming everything. A trucker on the next street had been attacked. He'd been stopped near the old gas station. Someone had jumped him, robbed him, and tried to hijack the truck. He lost control, crashed into a barrier. The suspect had taken off through the yards, cutting through back fences. The injured man had turned into the first lit-up house he could find, which happened to be hers. The suspect, armed, followed behind him, trying to finish what he started. The guy in the baseball cap had been standing there, waiting for the right moment. Liana's half-closed porch gate and unlocked back door almost gave it to him. But he hadn't expected her to be recording. The glimpse of the cap in the microwave reflection gave her just enough warning. The police said those 10 minutes were the difference between the guy getting in or not. The hat he dropped, probably while climbing the fence, had landed on her microwave. That tiny detail might have saved them. She laughed, nervous, spilling bottled water across her sneakers. Her voice shook when she told me how she'd heard the back doorknob rattle, how one of the cops had to brace it while another went around to intercept. I listened to everything. Couldn't stop imagining it. The flashlight brand she mentioned, the chipped doorknob she hadn't fixed yet, even the ticking gas stove in her kitchen. All burned into my mind like pieces of a puzzle that barely held together. The man who'd been bleeding waved to the camera before the medics led him away. Just a wave. His sleeve was soaked to the elbow. Then the sound outside her house shifted again. Traffic noise, casual, like a regular Friday, was resuming. I closed my laptop only near sunrise. The Coke can was empty, leaving a sticky ring on the desk. Outside, the first rays of day crept over the coffee shop roof across the street. I sat there, staring at Liana's profile, refreshing it every few minutes, in case something else showed up. Couldn't shake the feeling that something might still be off, that maybe there'd be another flicker in another post. Only one thought kept looping in my head. We both hit send at the right second. None of the filters felt funny anymore. I unfollowed 20-something accounts that I'd added without thinking. Liana said she'd send me a new video once she got home, but no autosave this time. "Don't want the glass giving away secrets," she said. One of our friends texted about meeting up at the basketball court that evening. I said yes, without thinking. First time I agreed to something like that all year. It's strange how a regular Saturday can show you just how thin the line is. Between a joke and a warning. Between a story clip and something real. Between hitting record and staying alive. The morning bell rang off schedule, sharp and loud like a fire alarm with a glitch. Everyone in the hallway jerked a little, and even the teachers froze for half a second. I was at my locker, switching out books for second period, when the loudspeaker cracked to life with the principal's voice. "Technical issue, no cause for concern." His tone was flat, like he barely believed it himself. I glanced up at the round camera dome above the lockers, then went back to flipping through my binder. Between third and fourth period, I was checking my phone in the cafeteria when a new friend request popped up. Ty for real 92. Normally, I just swipe those away without looking, but this one made me pause. The profile picture wasn't a face, not even some cartoon or car. Just a gray silhouette on a neon green background, almost like a placeholder, but off somehow. I clicked through, mostly out of boredom, and the first thing I saw in the chat was a schedule. My schedule. Down to the last period, with the update for Wednesday's phys ed swap. Then he messaged, "It's boring here alone. Come meet me by the back exit after last bell." I scrolled back up and reread the schedule. It wasn't a guess. It had the changes, even the homeroom teacher switch that only got announced yesterday. I checked the list of new students in the school app. Nobody matched the name or even came close. No profile photo, no mutual friends. I stared at the message for a bit, thumb hovering over the screen. Could be a prank, I thought. Someone messing around. But my stomach felt off, like when you realize you forgot a test you were supposed to study for. After biology, I stopped by the long windows near the science wing. You could see the staff parking lot from there, and that's when I noticed it. A dark blue sedan parked close to the back fence. Not a teacher's car. Older, with faded paint and that boxy shape you don't see much anymore. The license plate was caked in mud, too thick to make out even the state. Looked like it had come from a long highway drive, maybe overnight. I zoomed in and snapped a photo, but the lighting was bad, and my phone camera's focus sucked. The picture came out blurry, but you could still make out the outline of someone sitting in the driver's seat. He wasn't moving much, just sitting. Still, but not completely still, like a tiny shift now and then. Enough that you knew he was awake, watching. That kind of stillness creeps in slow, makes your skin itch before your brain catches up. The bell rang again, final break before last class, and I jumped. I stood there a second too long, phone still in my hand, then walked away, fast. Back to the hallway, trying to blend in. My locker was 2 rows from the exit, but I didn't go there. I didn't even glance down that corridor. Just waited till the final bell, then took the main hall out with the crowd. Outside was loud, normal. Buses lined up, parents pulling up, people calling to each other. I kept my head low and walked with a group of kids from my math class, slipping away at the second block. When I turned onto Maple, I checked behind me. The sedan wasn't in the lot anymore, but I spotted it again, 2 blocks down, crawling behind one of the school buses like it was just stuck in traffic. I slowed down, made like I was tying my shoe. In the bus's side mirror, I saw the car, just enough to be sure. Same dirty plate, same shape, same color. It turned when the bus turned, followed a bit, then peeled off to the right. I kept walking. No rush, just steady pace through the side streets, where the lawns were patchy and the driveways had those plastic bins for local ads and newspapers. I was almost home when Sout, my dog, burst out from behind the fence like he always does. That little moment of normal helped me breathe a bit. He barked once and sprinted toward me. I bent to rub his ears, and when I looked up, the car was there again, rolling slow past the corner, then jerking suddenly toward the pharmacy lot. That evening, while I was upstairs in my room trying to finish a worksheet, my dad yelled from outside. I heard the trash bin slam, and then the quick crunch of gravel under tires. When I came down, he was still standing by the porch, holding a black trash bag in one hand and pointing toward the street. "That car's been sitting there for a while," he said. Soon as I came out, the guy drove off. Couldn't see his face. I asked if he got a plate number, but he shook his head. The guy had turned his head, like he didn't want to be seen, then hit the gas. A couple of loose stones skipped on the asphalt behind his wheels. We pulled up the clip from our doorbell cam. The car was blurry again. Same dirty paint, same body type, same spot across from our front yard. While my dad saved the video and talked about maybe calling someone, I went back to my room and tried messaging Ty for Real 92. The chat was gone. The profile didn't exist anymore. Not in my friends list, not in the search. It was like it had never been there. Next morning, I kept my phone in the inside pocket of my jacket all day. I wasn't even checking it much. Just having it close made me feel like I was holding some kind of shield. Between classes, I asked a couple friends if they'd heard of anyone named Ty transferring. Nobody had. Most just shrugged. One said, maybe I got spammed by a bot. In computer science class, I asked the teacher if there was anything going on with the IT club, any new project, some kind of game or puzzle thing. He said, if they're launching an ARG, they forgot to invite the teachers, then laughed a little. But it was the kind of laugh people do when they want to end a conversation fast. All day I kept spotting blue sedans. Not the one, but similar enough to make my pulse spike for a second. One near the gym, one 2 blocks away during lunch. Every time it wasn't him, but every time I looked closer than I should have had to. I finally went to the school officer during 3rd period. Sat in the small office while kids filed by for tardy slips and dumb fights. I showed him the screenshots, the schedule message, and the doorbell cam video. He watched it twice, leaned forward like he wanted to say something, then just told me to stick close to crowds. He wrote down what kind of car it looked like, said he'd keep an eye out. Back in class, every engine noise from the road made me glance at the window. The blinds were half closed, and even the breeze outside made them twitch. It started to feel like the sound of passing traffic was louder than normal, even though I knew it wasn't. At lunch, I sat in the library, facing the window, watching the teacher lot. No blue car, no car at all for a while. But I couldn't shake the feeling something was about to happen. That night we moved some of the boxes on our porch so the motion sensor would catch someone walking up faster. It was something to do at least. Made it feel like we weren't just waiting. Around 9:30 my phone buzzed. Not a text, not even a message, just a snap. The kind where you only see it once. No caption, no context. But this one had the tiny note under it. Sent from web. Not from a phone. I stared at the alert. Didn't open it. Just watched it fade from the screen. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want to find out that late at night. A full week went by, and the car never came back. I started walking to school again, headphones in, but one earbud out. I checked over my shoulder without making it obvious. Learned to scan mirrors like a habit. Stop signs, parked cars, shop windows. My friends joked about me being paranoid, but they didn't know how clear I remembered that message. My exact schedule. The way the car showed up again and again without anyone inside the school ever seeing the driver. I never saw the Snap account again. No more messages, nothing. But I still look at every bumper before I cross the street. Some nights I wake up because I think I hear a car idling nearby. Usually it's just the guy delivering newspapers, but it still gets me up. I sit for a second, let the silence settle, then look at my phone. I still wonder how he got that schedule. Even with student portals and everything locked down, it's not the kind of info anyone just finds. The school announced a system alert test last Friday, but even that sounded too loud, too sharp. Like something inside me flinched when the speaker crackled, and every time I unlock my phone, it still opens to the same empty chat. Waiting. Ready. The day was full from the start. 2 rounds of banner edits, a call from the art director who forgot we already agreed on the layout, and a courier who showed up 40 minutes late with my sandwich order. Just another classic work-from-home kind of day. Around 5:30, I finally settled onto the porch with my tablet, hoping to catch the last bit of sun while finishing up the final client notes. The light was fading fast, but it was calm out, and I needed the air. That's when the notification popped up. A DM from someone named Maple123. Could have been anyone, really. I glanced at it. Just some photos of snowy pine trees, posted in quick succession, like someone testing filters. The account didn't ring any bells, but I figured it might be one of those landscape hobbyists who follow random people. I replied with a polite smiley face and got back to the feedback dock. About 10 minutes passed before another photo came through. This one was a close-up. A wet wooden plank with a single bright red sugar maple leaf on it, the kind that curls up a little at the edges. I paused. The plank looked weirdly familiar. Took me a second, but it resembled the board we put under our Christmas tree every year. Same knot marks, same grain direction. I double-tapped it, gave it a like, then minimized the chat. Didn't think too much about it. Probably a coincidence. Then a second image came through maybe 20 minutes later. This time, it was a small window latch. Paint chipped around the edge. Rust line on the hinge. I stared at it a bit longer. The photo was framed close up but angled from slightly above, like someone standing and aiming down with a phone. There was something uncomfortable about the details. I looked up slowly, turned to my right. The side of the gazebo. My window. The latch was the same. Not just similar, identical down to the peeling blue paint and the scratch that runs across the middle. I didn't move for a full minute. Just sat there, screen dimming in my lap, until the breeze knocked a branch against the railing and I flinched. Whoever took that picture had to have been within arm's reach of where I was sitting now, and not earlier today, recently. Within the last half hour, and I hadn't heard a sound, not a step. First thought, maybe it was a stock photo, something scraped from Pinterest or an old DIY blog. But the angle, the grime in the lower left corner of the frame, the faint reflection of the string lights I'd hung under the roof just last weekend, it was too exact. I turned off the string lights with the switch on the post. Didn't want to make myself an easy target in the dark. My fingers were damp, phone slippery in my hand. I didn't call 911. I don't know why. Maybe because nothing had happened yet, technically. I called my dad instead. He lived 5 miles out, in a single-story place near the highway. Retired. Always told me if I ever needed anything, just call, day or night. It rang. And rang. While I waited, another notification blinked across the screen. New message. Photo. I tapped it with my thumb. This one showed my fence. The back section near the tool shed, where the snow's thinner because of the overhanging tree. A single line of footprints, clean, defined, running up to the boards. Sneaker treads. You could even see where the toes dug in slightly on the last step. There was a caption this time, just 3 words. Like watching you. My dad didn't waste time. He was already on the road before I finished my sentence. I moved through the house fast, shutting every blind, locking every window. In the dark, the place didn't feel like home anymore. It was like a ship lost in fog. Every small sound felt too loud. The hum of the fridge made my shoulders jump. I turned off every light, kept only the hallway lamp on dim. I sat low, behind the kitchen island, knees pulled in, trying to slow my breathing. Snow outside made everything quiet. Quiet enough that even a single crunch would stand out. I listened for that crunch. A few minutes passed, then a branch tapped lightly against the glass behind me. I jerked around, dropped my mug. Tea spilled down the rug and onto the tiles. The sound felt explosive. I stayed crouched, ears sharp. 10 minutes. That's what the dispatcher had said. Police were on their way. But each second dragged like wet fabric being pulled across the floor. The screen of my phone lit up again, a blue flash in the shadows. I grabbed it. One new message, another photo. This time it was a close-up of a phone, not mine, but almost. Black, caseless, lying on the garden path like someone had dropped it on purpose. The snow around it hadn't settled, still disturbed from movement. It looked like bait. Planted. I didn't go check. I couldn't. If it was my phone, someone had walked up close enough to take it. But mine was still in my hand. That meant it was someone else's. Or worse, a decoy. My mind raced. Was he trying to lure me out? Film me picking it up? I pressed my back to the cabinet, tried to stay completely still. The quieter it got, the louder my own breath sounded. Finally, red and blue flashed across the living room wall. I didn't even peek first. I just ran to the front door and opened it for them. 2 officers came in quick. One took the inside, the other went around the property. They checked the porch, the fence, the side alley. One called out. He'd found the trail. Footprints in the snow, single file, leading from the back fence toward the withered maple trees behind the neighbor's shed. The prints disappeared into a deep drift, no return set. The back gate latch had been ripped clean off. The officer held it up, twisted metal still hanging on the hook. The phone on the path? Just a burner. Old-style keypad, no SIM card, just Wi-Fi enabled. Probably only used to send those photos. The cop sealed it in a bag, logged it as evidence. He said he'd hand it to the digital forensics team. Back inside, my dad was checking the locks, one by one. He stood at the windows, arms folded, watching like something would come back if he looked away. I tried to recall faces from the last few days. People who might have walked by the fence, gotten close enough to snap shots. A guy in a beige jacket by the trash bins. A woman pushing a stroller around 9 in the morning. Could have been anyone. The sidewalk runs right behind the house. If you know where to stand, you can see everything. My dad stayed the night, got up every hour to check the yard. I barely slept. Next day, nothing happened. No photos, no messages. Like whoever it was had vanished with the trail. I didn't know what to make of it. Was it some kind of twisted test to see how I'd react? Or was the goal just fear? Just to get inside my head? The detective came by in the afternoon. He asked a lot of questions, then explained something I hadn't thought about. Said these days, apps save GPS tags and photo metadata by default, in the EXIF. If you don't scrub that data, someone can pull the coordinates from a public post and walk straight to your door. He said reports like this are growing. Quiet stalking. No physical contact, just observation. Watching. Waiting. Always from just out of sight. The gazebo sits empty now. We replaced the latch, painted the frame. But I don't sit out there anymore. Even in daylight, I don't like the way the boards creak under my feet. Every few weeks, I still get a friend request. Usually from another maple, with some random numbers after it. I hit decline before I even check the profile. Just seeing the name makes my chest go tight. I spend most evenings now in a cafe downtown. It's always full, always loud, the kind of place where nobody watches anyone for too long. Somehow the lights and chatter help, but sometimes, even there, I'll catch someone holding their phone a little too still in my direction. And I think about that night. How long he might have been standing there before he took the first picture. What scares me the most isn't that he got that close. It's that somewhere, those images probably still exist. On a drive, or uploaded, or backed up. Viewed and reviewed in silence. One after another. Each frame showing more than the last. And when the wind hits the gate just right and it swings loose, I swear I hear that soft click, like a camera shutter. The dorm smelled like instant noodles and that cheap air freshener called Ocean Breeze. I pushed my laptop aside, reaching for the sad sandwich I'd made earlier, when my phone buzzed with a Snap notification. The sender's name field was blank. I tapped on it. The square loaded, just static. Faint noise, like pixel snow. No face, no message. I figured it was a glitch. Snapchat messed up sometimes, and weird filters could break the whole thing. I locked the phone and went back to my sandwich. An hour later, another notification came through. I wasn't expecting anything. My friend group was small, and they knew I had early classes. I checked it anyway. It was a photo. At first, I didn't get it. Just an outdoor shot. But then I saw it. My townhouse entrance. That old red rug I got off Marketplace. The fern in the chipped clay pot. Dead since October. Still out there because I kept forgetting to toss it. The photo was taken from behind the hedge across the driveway. I knew the angle. I had stood there before, once, when looking for a lost Uber. The air in my room felt tight. I held the phone too long without moving. My fingers got cold, even though the radiator clanked steadily like always. I typed, "Who is this?" and hit send. Then I closed the app, opened it again. Nothing new. I kept checking every 10 seconds. Still nothing. My sandwich sat there, untouched. A few minutes later, I heard laughter outside my door. Some of the girls down the hall. It was past midnight, but not unusual on a Friday. Their voices faded. I got up, locked the door again just to be sure, then jammed the back of the chair under the handle. It wobbled a bit, but held. I went back to my bed, phone still in hand. No reply yet. But I kept checking anyway, refreshing the chat. I didn't want to open the curtains, but I looked at them, trying to sense if anything or anyone was behind them. I didn't move for at least 10 minutes. Then, the screen lit up again. One word. Open. I stared at it. Just that. No punctuation. No emoji. I stood up fast, grabbing my sweater from the bed and looking around the room. The chair was still under the handle. My laptop screen had gone to sleep. The only light came from my phone. I muted the snap, turned on the flashlight, and scanned the room again. Everything looked normal. Shoes by the door. Books stacked on the desk. The window shut. The bathroom was small, but it had no windows. Only a vent that made this low hum all night. I moved in there, shut the door, sat on the floor, and dialed 911. My thumb was slipping because I couldn't stop holding the phone so tight. It rang. The dispatcher answered. I told them everything, but my voice was shaking, and they asked me to slow down, repeat the address. I did. They said to stay where I was, that someone was on the way. Then there was a knock at my door. 3 soft taps. I didn't move. I sat on the tile, the flashlight pointed up at the ceiling. Then I heard my neighbor's door open. Lana. She must have heard it too. Another knock. This time, closer to her door. Not mine. Then her voice, just loud enough. "You okay in there?" I answered through the bathroom door, loud enough to carry. "Lana, please go back inside. Lock your door." Silence for a few seconds. Then her door shut quickly. The lock clicked. I crouched lower. Outside, the snow had started again. I could hear the light crunch of steps through the small window in the bathroom wall. It barely opened, just a vent window near the ceiling. But enough sound came through to tell me someone was still outside. Slow, paced steps. No voice. No running. Just one step. Pause. Another. I remembered something. Snap maps. A few weeks ago, I'd turned on Friends of Friends just for convenience, to check if anyone was nearby, especially when walking back from night classes. It hadn't seemed risky at the time, just easier than explaining where I was. I turned off the flashlight, sat still. The tile floor was freezing through my leggings. The vent hummed. I held the phone tight, waiting to hear sirens. The patrol arrived before I dared to come out. I heard the tires over the icy pavement, the clank of the gate. Through the bathroom window, I caught flashes of red and blue. When I finally opened the door, one of the officers was already at the front entrance. The other was shouting toward the garbage bins by the parking lot. They found him crouched behind the row of bins, middle-aged, wearing a gray hoodie and jeans, holding a phone tight to his chest like he was hiding it from the cold. He didn't run, didn't even try. Just looked at the officers like he was expecting something else to happen. Like the night had gone off script. They pulled him out, cuffed him on the sidewalk. I stood behind the officer at my door, watching through the gap. His phone screen was still lit. The officer checked it, showed it to the other. I heard one of them say, "He saved her snap location yesterday." The flashlight beam swung to the lot again. That's when I saw it. The car. Old station wagon, beat up blue with one flat tire, backed halfway into the bushes. They popped the trunk. There were open boxes, like someone had just cleared space. I saw plastic bins with stuffed animals, a baby's car seat tossed to the side, a pack of wipes. The officer looked inside, then turned to the other and nodded once. Later, the detective asked if I wanted to know more. I said yes, but he only mentioned an old file, something about domestic stalking charges, dismissed or unresolved. He didn't say whose case, just that this wasn't the first time. They had him in custody. I had to sign some paperwork. My hand shook a little when I held the pen. The back of my phone felt heavy, like I was gripping a brick. By the next day, the story had already spread around campus. People started calling him the Gray Man, even though no one really saw his face. Every time someone retold it, the details got warped. Suddenly he had a knife, or he'd broken in. None of that happened. But I didn't correct anyone. I just shut off location sharing in every app I could find. Snapchat, Instagram, even weather ones. The police followed up a few times. They told me to see a counselor. I didn't go. Instead, I signed up for a self-defense group on campus, twice a week in the rec center. We practiced holds, kicks, screaming. I bought the thickest doorstop I could find. Every morning I checked the locks before leaving for class, even if I was sure nobody touched them overnight. My parents sent pepper spray and told me to take taxis, not walk at night. I didn't argue. I deleted a bunch of apps. Still, every time I opened Snap, those green dots on the map made my stomach tighten. I knew what they were. Just friends. Just people. But I couldn't look at them the same way anymore. Even talking to my neighbors felt different. Lana once asked if I thought the weather would hold up over the weekend. It felt like she was testing me. Every question was a little too sharp. Every late-night sound in the hallway made me sit up straight in bed. I stopped going for evening walks. The calendar on the wall flipped to a new month. I didn't even notice until it was already halfway through. 3 weeks passed. Then another notification popped up on my phone. Mr. Gray 41 added you. Same blank avatar. The account was brand new. That day's date. No mutuals, no bio. Just that name. I didn't even hesitate. I took a screenshot, reported the account, and blocked it. Police said it was probably someone copying the username. Or maybe even the same guy trying again from inside. They weren't sure yet. Either way, they added it to the case file. The screenshot of my location from earlier was part of the record now. They said the circle was tightening. I kept living, going to class, turning assignments in. But I checked my email login history more than I checked my grades. Every time I locked the door, I pulled twice to make sure it clicked. I deleted more apps. My timeline looked clean, no signs of weird activity. But every single notification made my chest buzz in a way I couldn't ignore. Sometimes it felt like the circle never broke at all. It just got smaller, tighter, pulling in slowly while you were looking the other way. Liv invited me to take a walk by the waterfront to meet a great guy she'd been dying to introduce me to. I didn't expect much. It was one of those warm spring evenings when you don't want to be stuck at home anyway. Mark showed up in gray sneakers, wearing a bright, confident smile, and talked a lot about marathons and business podcasts. He had that easygoing way of laughing at his own stories, and I found myself laughing along without trying too hard. We ended up sharing pistachio ice cream from a tiny stand near the pier, the kind with the 2 small plastic spoons and the half-melted drips down the sides. He talked about books he never finished. I joked about my failed attempt to run a 5K last fall. It was casual, light. When we finally split up, I gave him my snap, mostly to be polite. I got home feeling decent. Dropped my sneakers by the door where some of the squirrel feed had spilled out of the bag. It had been a simple evening, better than most first meets. As I flopped onto the couch, I saw a message notification pop up. Look at that sunset, with a photo of the sky over the marina. From Mark. I liked it without thinking. Didn't feel like a big deal. The next morning, I was halfway through brushing my teeth when another snap arrived. A selfie. Mark, in the driver's seat of his car, hair slightly windblown, sunglasses half on. Behind him, a stretch of highway, sun hitting the concrete. The caption read, "Almost in your area. Views are crazy good here." It was Highway 92, the exit toward my neighborhood. I stared at it longer than I should have, toothbrush still in my mouth. My first thought was that it was too soon, too eager. But then I figured, okay, maybe it's his way of being cute. Maybe he was just passing through and thought it would make me smile. I double-tapped and closed the app. By the end of the week, his messages were a regular part of my day. At first it was funny stuff. Screenshots of weird tweets, photos of bad coffee, even a random squirrel pic captioned, "Your cousins." But then he started asking more specific things. Are you at work yet? Did you already leave the apartment? Long day today? They came in almost every 2 hours. I noticed he'd started timing them to match my commute. I hadn't mentioned my schedule, but I guessed he could have figured it out from old posts, tagged places, maybe even comments on my friends' stories. It was easy to assume he was just being interested, maybe a little too much, but nothing I could point to as wrong. Then one morning, I was waiting at the bus stop, the one near the pharmacy, headphones in, mind half on my podcast, half on the sidewalk cracks. I glanced at my phone. New snap. It was a photo of the bus stop I was standing at. Same angle, same trash bin in the corner, same cloudy sky. No caption, just the image. I looked up fast, heart doing something tight. I didn't see him. I spun a little, trying not to make it obvious, but there was no sign of that car, or him. The rational part of my brain took over quick. Maybe he took it earlier, just reused the photo. Maybe he knew my shift time and guessed I'd be here. It didn't sit right, but I didn't want to blow it up into something it wasn't. I shrugged it off, told myself to relax. That night, walking back from the grocery store, I was unlocking my apartment complex gate when I heard the soft click of a car unlocking close by. I paused. The street was mostly empty, quiet, except for the far-off sound of someone dragging their trash bin. I turned toward the sound. A car sat on the opposite curb, engine off, headlights dark. A familiar cap moved behind the windshield, dark blue with a white stripe. Mark's cap. He rolled the window halfway down and waved. His smile was wide, casual, like we'd just bumped into each other on purpose. "Hey," he said. "Figured I'd swing by, say hi. I was around." I didn't answer. I gave a small, fake smile and gestured vaguely behind me. "I'm late for a family thing. Kinda last minute," I said quickly. My voice came out too fast, but I didn't wait for his reaction. I turned around and walked straight past my building entrance, down the street. There's a used bookstore on the next block. It stays open late on Fridays. I slipped inside, nodded at the tired guy behind the counter, and went straight to the back. I didn't even look at the shelves, just stayed there until the lights flickered for closing. When I got home, the apartment felt different. Still, quiet. But every new message from him after that buzzed like an alarm. My friend told me to turn off location access in the app. I did it that evening, quietly, without telling Mark. Just tapped through the settings and cut it off. Less than an hour later, he messaged, "Map's acting up. Where are you?" I stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. I told him I was working on a report for the morning, trying to sound casual. He read it instantly. Then another message popped up, longer. "We need to talk, face to face, tonight." That wording hit something in the back of my memory. I remembered a girl at my office mentioning a similar thing, how a guy insisted on meeting after she stopped replying, and how she got spammed with hundreds of fake texts and emails when she blocked him. I wasn't going to wait for it to reach that level. I called my cousin. He's in road patrol, used to dealing with weird confrontations. Told him I needed help, nothing dramatic, just to be cautious. We agreed to meet at a busy cafe near the central shopping quarter. Bright lights, cameras, people around. He said he'd come in uniform, and he'd bring 2 of his co-workers, just as regular customers, nothing official. I sent Mark the cafe address a few hours before the time, added that I was low on time, but if you're serious about talking, come here. No emoji, no softening. I showed up 10 minutes early, ordered a tea, and sat near the windows. My cousin was already there, pretending to read the paper. His co-workers drifted in one by one, bought coffee, spread out at nearby tables. I kept checking the door every time it slid open, letting in another wave of warm air and someone's perfume or cigarette smell. Families, teenagers, delivery guys, but no Mark. At exactly the set time, my phone lit up. A message came through, just a black rectangle. No text, no caption, just a blank image, like the camera was covered. I showed it to my cousin. He raised an eyebrow but said nothing. One of his friends leaned over and joked, "That's digital panic." 10 minutes later, the Snap account Mark ever run was gone. Deleted. Just vanished. No profile, no chat history, no trace. I refreshed, tried to reopen the chat, but everything had reset to gray. My cousin asked me to forward him all the screenshots I had saved earlier. The bus stop photo, the highway selfie, everything. He said they might run them through internal systems just in case. I took a cab home. No headlights followed me, no parked cars idled near my building. The street was calm for the first time in a week. As I unlocked my front door, it felt like stepping out of some tight passage. I exhaled without realizing I'd been holding my breath. Inside, I deleted the contact list completely, changed all privacy settings to maximum, and cleared location permissions across all apps. I left only what was essential, nothing more. A month passed. Life drifted back into routine. The same morning cappuccino from the kiosk near the train station. evening business podcasts while folding laundry. But I caught myself watching people more. Not paranoid, just alert. I noticed who turned to look at my name badge when I left work, who walked behind me for more than 1 block in the parking lot. Little things I used to ignore now stood out like flashing signs. In the app, I kept my location off. My status showed nothing. Just blank. A private ghost, as someone called it online. Liv mentioned once, in passing, that Mark had disappeared from most social media, deleted everything. She said it like a side comment, not knowing the weight it carried. I didn't say anything back. Maybe that was the end of the loop. Maybe I'd exited it cleanly. But I learned something I didn't know before. Safety isn't something you notice until it's disturbed. You think the normal things will always be there. Quiet walks, unread messages, lights at night. But all it takes is one person turning interest into control, and you feel how thin that comfort really is. Now every time I see a friend request or get a message from someone new, I pause. I ask myself 2 questions. What am I giving up by answering? And am I willing to pay the price? Outside, Highway 92 keeps humming with traffic. Hundreds of cars rush past every hour, and I don't scan the lanes for that familiar bumper anymore. Mark called me early Saturday morning while I was trying to scrape a burnt bagel off the toaster coils. He was swearing nonstop, said his phone was gone, vanished at a bus stop late last night. All his 2-factor codes, bank logins, everything was in it. I told him to breathe and asked if he'd turned on the phone tracking. He said yeah, but he didn't want to go alone. I said I'd drive. The tracker showed it was still pinging. The signal pointed to some warehouse or beacon structure past a stretch of old, shut-down car repair shops. I grabbed gloves and a flashlight from the back seat, stuff I usually kept around for winter breakdowns or minor adventures. I didn't really think this would turn into anything serious. Just 2 guys retrieving a phone from some sketchy place. We figured maybe someone picked it up and dropped it there, or maybe it got tossed. The streets past the highway were quiet, wet from last night's rain. The few traffic lights we passed flickered against puddles, casting reflections that made the road look like an old movie reel. We didn't say much, just the occasional grunt when we hit a pothole or when the GPS signal shifted slightly. Mark kept filming with his phone, the one he still had, short clips of the dark sky and old buildings. Just in case, he said, but not posting it. I'll lock it to private. We both knew it was smarter not to broadcast what we were doing. Last thing we needed was some idiot thinking we were urban explorers and tagging along. The area got emptier as we went. Strip malls turned to empty lots, then rusting signs, old tires stacked beside broken fences. When the signal finally locked in, it pointed to a low brick building, no signage, just a blank face of cracked walls and windows with shut blinds. A chain-link fence surrounded the lot, but the main gate was open, wide like someone forgot to lock it, or like they were expecting a delivery. We pulled up slowly. I parked right under a flickering street lamp on purpose. Figured if something weird went down, at least the city camera might catch part of it. I told Mark to stay alert and handed him the gloves. He slipped them on and grunted. I took the flashlight, checked its battery, and scanned the windows. Nothing but shut blinds, dust, and that quiet, too quiet feeling you get in dead zones of the city. We walked up to the door. Steel, no handle, just a push plate and some chipping paint. No doorbell. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again, harder. Still no answer. We circled to the side, found a smaller door, same style. We banged on that one too. Our knuckles started to ache. Still no sound from inside. "Try sending another snap," I said. Mark lifted his phone and filmed a short video. Pitch black, some static noises, but nothing useful. He looked at me and shrugged. Then his tracker app blinked. He glanced down. "It's moving," he said. "What?" He held it up. "It's coming closer." We both froze, trying to hear something over the slight wind. That's when we heard it. Footsteps, fast and sharp. 3 guys came bursting out from a side gate we hadn't noticed. All of them had baseball caps pulled low, hoods up. Their sneakers slapped loud against the concrete. They didn't say a word. Just sprinted the opposite direction without even looking back, except one of them. He hesitated, half a second maybe, like he was sizing us up, calculating something. He wasn't afraid. That's what stuck with me. His stare wasn't nervous, just calm. I didn't wait to find out what he decided. I shoved my hands in my pocket for the keys, turned, and they slipped right out as we started running. I heard them hit the pavement but didn't stop. The echo of our footsteps behind us sounded like someone was gaining, even though I couldn't hear anyone chasing. We ran toward the road, past rusting barrels and torn tarps flapping in the wind. The warehouse light behind us flicked on with a heavy thunk, casting sharp beams over the yard like a searchlight. The air was thick with that hot metal smell that comes when panic meets cold air. We didn't talk, didn't need to. I fumbled the door open and we dove into the sedan, slammed the door shut. I reached for the ignition and my fingers scraped empty plastic. No keys. My stomach dropped straight into the parking stub still stuck to the dash from 2 nights ago. I cursed. Mark was yelling now, something about getting out, finding help, but I was already tearing through the car. Floor mats, under the seat, cup holders, nothing. Then I remembered the glove box, backup keys, if they were still there. Before I could reach it, a beam of light swung across the windshield, bright and slow, like someone sweeping it on purpose. The flashlight, or maybe a spotlight, moved methodically from one side of the car to the other. I froze. Mark slammed his palm on the horn. Long, blaring sound. Not to call for help, just to make noise, to scare whoever it was. The light vanished. The glove box clicked open. My hand hit a pile of napkins and papers, then something cold and metal. Spare keys. I didn't waste time wondering why they were still there. We were supposed to return them months ago when the ignition was replaced. I jammed it into the slot, turned it hard, and the engine roared to life. I threw the car in reverse, tires squealing, then into drive. The wheels spat gravel as we tore through the gate and shot out onto the main road. The smell of burning oil and rubber filled the cabin. We didn't speak, just watched the side mirrors. For a second, I saw headlights. High ones. Truck height. They blinked through the darkness, far behind, then vanished. No movement. No pursuit. 5 minutes later, the tracking app showed no signal. The phone was either smashed or switched off completely. Maybe tossed into something worse. We found a 24-hour gas station on the edge of town. The kind with dirty bathrooms and a bored security guard behind fogged glass. We told him everything, or at least the parts that made sense. He wrote it down, slowly, like he didn't care. Later, the cops showed up, took our statements, said they'd look into it. Days passed. What they eventually found was just the battery, ripped out and thrown into a public dumpster 2 blocks from the warehouse. No phone, no footage, no answers. But something else stuck with both of us. The snap map. It had updated, even while we were parked, even while we were running. The app had shared Mark's live location right up until the last second, which meant whoever was in that building, whoever those guys were, knew where we were, minute by minute, second by second. Mark stopped posting stories after that. Not just from that night, entirely. Deleted his social apps, removed permissions. I went through every setting I could find and stripped all the location tags from my photos, my apps, even my weather widget. It's been a month. I still drive without the keyless start. The spare keys rattle heavy in my jacket now. No Bluetooth, no app link, just metal and plastic. Mark carries this cheap, ugly flip phone now. The kind with a plastic screen and buttons that click too loud. He says it's insurance. I think it's a charm. Whatever it is, he hasn't touched a smartphone since. We don't talk about that night. Don't need to. The silence does the work. I think what hit hardest was the realization that we thought we were doing something basic, recovering a phone, a dumb mission, heroic in a pointless kind of way. But it slipped fast, and we didn't notice. 1 second we were tracking a dot on a map, next second we were being watched. The city put a new lock on the warehouse. A real chain. Updated the alarm too, they said. Probably won't do much. You can chain a door, but not a memory. Now, every time my phone asks if I want to share my location for 15 minutes, I swipe past. Doesn't matter if it's for food delivery or carpool or some app asking for better recommendations. I don't share. Not anymore. Some of our friends think we're being dramatic, that it was just some guys messing around. But that calm look from the one who paused? That wasn't someone playing a prank. That was someone measuring risk. They call us paranoid. Maybe they're right. Or maybe we just saw the wrong side of curiosity too early. Sometimes losing a phone might be the best way not to lose something worse. I was scrolling through my feed after finishing homework while my mom was making pasta in the kitchen. It was a pretty normal evening. The TV was on low in the background, and I had one earbud in, just half paying attention. A friend request popped up from someone named John25Real. His avatar was just a regular picture, some guy standing next to a soccer field, holding a water bottle, looking away from the camera like someone caught him mid-break. It didn't seem creepy or fake at first glance. I figured it was maybe someone's older brother or a guy from another school nearby. Sometimes people added each other after group projects or school events. I hit accept without really thinking twice. Not even a minute later, he sent a sticker, then another one. They were generic, like those thumbs up stickers, nothing weird. Then he asked, "How are classes going?" I replied quick, just said fine, because I was in the middle of finishing up a biology lab write-up. I had a tab open with diagrams and was flipping between apps, not really expecting him to keep messaging. He waited maybe 5 minutes, then asked, "Are you straight or?" Just like that. I blinked at the screen. I didn't answer right away. It felt too direct, especially from someone I didn't know. I replied with, "That's not something I want to talk about." I was hoping that would be enough to make him back off, or at least realize it wasn't cool to ask that. A few seconds later, he sent a video clip. It looked like it had been pulled from some private group or something. Not graphic in the thumbnail, but it had a title that didn't belong in any school chat. I didn't open it. Just seeing the preview text was enough. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. My stomach dropped a little. I clicked on his profile again. Still just that same photo. No mutual friends, no posts, nothing public. I locked my phone for a second and sat there, just listening to the kitchen noises. Then the phone buzzed again. Another message. I opened it and the video had been deleted. Another message popped up and then disappeared. I took a screenshot, then another one. Every time a new message appeared, I snapped it, especially when he tried to delete them. My thumb was shaking a little, but I kept pressing the buttons. My mom stepped into the room. "Why do you look so pale?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just turned the phone toward her and held it out. She didn't say anything for a second, just took the phone and started scrolling. Then she walked back into the kitchen and grabbed her phone. I could hear her talking, low and fast. She was calling my dad. Dad works as a systems administrator for a community college. He's good with this stuff. Mom put the call on speaker. Dad didn't ask too many questions, just said, "Don't delete anything. Save the screenshots in cloud storage. It needs to show the time they were taken." I followed the instructions. Opened Drive, made a folder, uploaded every image. Then I backed them up again just in case. The guy was still messaging. "It's just educational," he wrote. "Don't be scared." I didn't answer. I blocked him. The app threw up a message saying that blocked users can't be reported unless unblocked. That made no sense to me, but I had to unblock him just to file the report. The messages kept trying to come through while I filled out the form. I ticked every box I could. Unsolicited content, graphic material, harassment. My fingers were shaking as I tapped each option. The platform sent a notification quickly. "This user violated our policies. Account has been suspended." The message popped up in red, and I stared at it for a few seconds before locking the phone again. My dad wasn't satisfied with just that. He said we had to go all the way through with it. He had already spoken with someone from the cyber division earlier. We got in the car and drove to the police station that same evening. At the station, we waited in a side room where the lights flickered a little, and everything smelled like old paper. An officer came in with a tablet and asked a few basic questions. I showed him the screenshots, the chat history, and the upload times in the cloud folder. He nodded a few times and said, "To move forward, we'll need an IP address. The platform will provide it on official request." He explained that sometimes these things get buried if you don't follow up properly. But since my dad already opened a channel with the tech team, things might move faster. That night I couldn't sleep. The hallway light was on, and my parents stayed in the living room watching something low volume on TV, but none of it helped. I just stared at the ceiling. The whole time, what bothered me was how easy it was for someone to hide behind a screen. I didn't even know what his voice sounded like. Just some photos, a name that was clearly fake, and a style of writing that kept replaying in my head. Around 3 in the morning, I messaged my friend that I wasn't going to school tomorrow. I didn't have the energy to sit through classes and act like everything was fine. At 4, a new email came in. It was from the platform's safety team. The subject line read, "You helped uncover a violator network." Inside, they thanked me for the report, saying it connected to several other complaints under review. I stared at the screen a long time before closing it. A week later, we got another call. This time, it was from the police. They said the man had been found. He'd been using a public terminal at the downtown library, logging in for just a few minutes at a time. The location wasn't tracked right away because of how the system was set up, but eventually they matched patterns from other complaints. He had multiple accusations tied to him already. They charged him with several counts, including some from different regions. At school, they arranged a special class about online safety. It was awkward at first. The room was too quiet. I agreed to talk, but only gave the basic story. How someone messaged me, asked personal stuff, and crossed the line. I didn't go into all the details. My classmates looked uncomfortable. A couple of them glanced around like they didn't want to be there. Then one kid raised his hand and asked, "What should we do if someone sends stuff like that?" That started a small wave of questions. The teacher, who was normally strict and always about rules, surprised everyone. She pulled a box of chocolates out of a drawer, set it on her desk, and said, "Today, no grades. Just talk." After that, people relaxed. We ended up having a real discussion, not just some lecture. A few students shared that they'd had weird messages before too, but never reported them. Nobody made jokes or laughed. It felt serious, but also like something useful came out of it. Later that day, someone made a new group chat called Safe Feed. We started dropping in names of sketchy profiles or links that didn't look right. The group grew fast. Turns out, a lot of people had gone through something similar, but they kept it to themselves. Sharing made it easier to notice patterns. It wasn't about being paranoid, just careful. Now, every time I get a new friend request, I pause for a second longer than I used to. I check the profile twice, look at the mutuals, think about the name. I don't panic though. I just have a plan now. The platform gave me a little badge on my profile. Report of the week. It's kind of funny looking, a cartoon magnifying glass with a smile, but it felt good to get it. My parents bought me a sketchbook that same week. They said it might help to draw things out instead of staying glued to my phone all day. I started filling it with random stuff, mostly quiet scenes, empty streets, or people walking away in crowds. Sometimes when I hear a ping, my brain still tenses up. It's more habit than fear now. That weird half-second of wondering what's going to pop up next. But I'm not scared the way I was. Just more aware. If John ever tries again with a different name, I'll know. I'll recognize the way he writes, the words he chooses, how he opens a message. And I won't even read the full chat. I'll report and block without thinking twice. Me and Meg had this little tradition. After every major test at school, we'd go light sparklers in the alley between our houses. It wasn't anything big, just a narrow passage behind the garages, concrete walls on both sides, one old street lamp that always flickered, and enough space for two people to stand side by side. Friday night smelled like wet pavement and someone's barbecue a few houses down. The kind of suburban calm you don't really notice until something interrupts it. We lit 2 sparklers and waved them in slow loops, letting the sparks scatter gold in the air. It was quiet, except for the soft crackling and distant voices from open windows. Then we heard a sound, like a switch being flipped. Across the alley, on the second floor of the duplex opposite us, a window lit up faintly. But not from a bulb. Just enough to silhouette 2 people behind the curtain. They stood totally still. A man and a woman, it looked like. No motion, no gestures. Just standing there, backlit by some faint TV glow or maybe a hallway light. I waved. Meg did too. Nothing. We laughed it off, said, "They're always weird," and moved down the alley, our shoes splashing in a puddle from the rain earlier that day. The sparklers burned out, and we tossed the hot wires into the gravel. 10 minutes later, we split up for the night. I walked home, brushed my teeth, climbed into bed with my phone. Around 11, I got a snap. It was from a username I didn't recognize. J8DN. I figured it was someone from school, maybe a burner account. The snap was just a black screen with one word in white text. Hi. Didn't think much of it. Probably a prank from some freshman trying to be creepy. I watched a few reels and fell asleep. Next morning, I woke up, checked my phone, and there was another snap from the same account. This time, it was a photo. I opened it expecting something dumb, but it was my house. The photo was taken from the sidewalk across the street, directly in front of our place. You could clearly see our light blue mailbox. The angle was too perfect to be random. It wasn't a photo you'd find online. It was recent. You could still see the puddle by the curb from last night's rain. I stared at it for a minute. My fingers tightened on the phone like it might slip from how sweaty they were. I took a screenshot and sent it to Meg. She replied almost right away. "What F? It won't let me find their account. It's only you. That's targeted." We met up before school and walked together. The weather was gray, and I kept looking behind us, but there was no one. It helped having her there. We didn't talk much, just stuck close. By lunch, I'd almost forgotten about it. We had music class right before lunch, and after that, we hung out near the cafeteria like usual. We were standing by the vending machines talking about the school play when I got another notification. New snap from J8DN. My hand didn't even want to open it, but I did. It was a photo of the cafeteria, the exact spot where we were standing, just a few minutes earlier. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. Same angle, same vending machine, same trash can beside us. There were even 2 girls in the background who had just walked past us 5 minutes ago. I didn't even think. I blocked the account. My heart was pounding so loud, it was like I could feel the pulse in my ears. I didn't tell Meg right away. What was I gonna say? Hey, they were watching us again. From what, 30 feet away? After school, I went straight home. I didn't take the alley this time. That night, Dad was on the porch, watering the plants. Around 9, he pointed at the house across the alley, the same one where the 2 silhouettes had been standing. Looks like they're moving out, he said. Lights are off now. Been going out room by room for the last hour. I looked over. It was true. Each window had gone dark slowly, one after another. But something was off. There were no movers, no boxes stacked outside, no truck in the driveway. Then I noticed the pickup parked by the curb. It had no license plate. Not on the front, not on the back. Just 2 brown cardboard boxes in the open bed. Nothing else. I asked Dad if he saw anyone carrying stuff out. He shook his head. Not once, he said. Weird. I stood there for a while, staring at the pickup, watching to see if anyone came out of the house. But nobody did. The porch light flickered once and then stayed dark. For a couple of days, everything was quiet. But it wasn't peace. Just that kind of silence that feels wrong, like a room where the air's too still. I tried to get back to my routine. Dance club had started again after break, and I figured maybe moving around would help me stop checking every window and shadow. After practice, I was in the locker room, grabbing my stuff, and the phone buzzed in my pocket. I looked without thinking. New message. No name I recognized. But the icon, it looked a lot like the one from before. Not exactly the same, but close enough to make my stomach twist. I opened it. It was a photo of me, from behind. I was standing right in front of my locker. Same shoes, same hoodie. The timestamp showed it was taken just minutes ago. Whoever it was had been right there, inside the building. My knees buckled a bit, and I had to lean on the bench to steady myself. I showed Val, a girl from my class who's into crime podcasts and always acts like she's not scared of anything. She looked more serious than I expected. She grabbed a whiteboard and started sketching a dumb little spy detection plan, complete with arrows and stick figures. "We'll find them," she said, trying to sound brave. We laughed, but it was that tight, thin kind of laugh that disappears too fast. That evening, I told Dad. He didn't joke this time. He took screenshots, printed them, and went straight to the local officer's desk after dinner. I watched from the car as they talked under the yellow light outside the station. Dad's hand gestures were sharp. He was angry. Later that night, the house across the alley finally went dark for good. I mean completely. The upstairs window that always glowed faintly. Gone. Porch light. Off. Pickup. Disappeared. By morning, all the windows were covered. Not blinds. Not curtains. Plywood. Nailed over the glass like in some disaster movie. We didn't see anyone do it. No workers. No noise. Just one morning, the house was shut like a box, like someone sealed it up from the inside. We figured there'd be more messages, more photos, but the phone stayed quiet. Days passed. Then a week. Nothing. Meg said maybe it was over. I didn't believe that. I thought silence could be a trap. The officer called back a few days later, said there were issues with the lease. Payments came from someone listed as a distant cousin in another state, but no one had a full name. The tenants, if that's what they even were, left without touching their deposit. The agency managing the place tried reaching out but hit a dead end. No forwarding address. The realtor, probably to stop people from peeking in, covered the lower windows with more boards. The house looked more like a crate than a home now. Every night, I started listening. Really listening. I'd turn off my fan and lie still, trying to hear beyond my room, hoping I wouldn't hear the sound of a trunk slamming. That metallic thud still haunted me. Then it rained. Not much, just enough to make the pavement glisten. I was walking home from the store when I saw it. Chalk writing on the sidewalk. Just one line. "See you soon, neighbors." I stood over it for a while. No one else around. No footprints in the wet except mine. I didn't take a picture. Didn't text Meg. I just walked home fast and grabbed the hose. Washed it away. Let the rain help. The letters smeared and vanished down the storm drain. We didn't talk about it much after that. Just unspoken agreement to keep it in the past. Meg and I lit sparklers again a few nights later, but this time we went out to her backyard. Far from the alley. Far from the old house. We didn't say why. We didn't have to. Sometimes I wonder, if phones had a smell, what would that night have smelled like? Burnt metal, probably. That cold tang of aluminum from a lighter, mixed with leftover smoke from the sparklers. I still remember the way it clung to my sleeves even after washing. Now, when we light them, it's in our backyard. With the porch light on and parents watching from the kitchen window, the garden's fenced. The grass is trimmed. There's even a sensor light that flashes on if you move near the gate. Dad installed it last month. I still check behind me every time. The app that sent those photos, it's gone from my phone. But sometimes I get a suggestion to add people nearby. The profile pictures are always blurry. I never click them. I just hit maybe later. The old house still stands, still boarded up. A faded sign says, "For rent." But it's been up for months. No one calls. No one visits. Sometimes I walk past it on my way to the store. Just a glance. Windows dark. Driveway cracked. A place without echoes. The spiral stopped turning, but it left dents on the floor. You don't always hear it start. Sometimes it's just a flicker, a step, a snap. Something that looks like nothing, until you realize how far down it's pulled you. The trick, I think, is noticing the curve early, and stepping sideways before it pulls tight. The day started great. I woke up to a bunch of messages and tagged posts. Balloons were already floating in the living room, and my sister handed me a small wrapped box before I'd even brushed my teeth. I got a few skincare things I'd wanted for a while, some chocolates, and a hilarious card from my dad that looked like it was made in 2007. By noon, I'd taken a picture of the cake and posted it on Snap for friends from school and uni. Just a quick pic of the cake and decorations with a 25 today caption. About 10 minutes after that, I got a reply from Rick. Rick and I hadn't talked much since high school. We were in the same math class, sat kinda close, threw paper notes back and forth. I remembered he made people laugh a lot. Sometimes not in a good way, but not horrible either. He sent a meme of a cupcake with a candle blowing up, and a caption like, "Me after 3 energy drinks." I chuckled and tapped the laugh emoji. Then we started chatting. At first, it was light, stupid nostalgia. Remember how Mr. Bell used to fall asleep during tests? That time we got detention for taping candy under the desks. It wasn't deep or anything. but it was oddly consistent. He was replying fast, like right after I'd hit send. The messages weren't creepy, just too much maybe. Like overcompensating for 5 years of silence in 5 hours. After lunch, I said I was heading out for a bit, and put my phone away while I helped set up the patio for the evening. We had lights to hang, chairs to move. My mom kept yelling for us to bring more napkins outside. It was just a normal birthday. When I checked my phone again around 4, Rick had sent, "Hey, do a selfie now," followed by a couple emojis. I replied, "LOL nah, I look like a mess." Honestly, my hair was in a bun, no makeup, not my best look. I thought that would be the end of it. Instead, he sent a picture. It was of him, kind of. He had a hoodie pulled over his head, but the main thing was his hand. He made a gesture like he was holding a fake gun to his head, grinning like a bad actor. It wasn't realistic. It looked like something out of a weird TikTok skit. But something about it wasn't funny. It wasn't framed like a joke. It was just him in a dim room, looking into the camera with this flat face. The caption said, "What if I did it, though?" I didn't know how to reply. I just tapped the haha reaction because I couldn't figure out what else to do. It felt weird not to respond, but we weren't close. I didn't owe him anything. Still, my stomach dropped a little. I left my phone on the counter and went outside. We lit the fairy lights, and people started arriving. My cousin showed up with too much wine. Aaron brought cookies that melted slightly in the car. There was music playing low from the speaker, and someone lit a citronella candle, even though there weren't any bugs. When I checked my phone again, Rick had sent another 6 or 7 messages. One said, "You ignoring me now?" The rest were just random emojis, an old photo of our class at prom, a blurry screenshot of something that looked like my Snap story. By 8, the messages were non-stop. "I'll be really mad if you don't say anything. So this is how it is now. You changed." It kept vibrating over and over until I finally flipped the switch to silent. I didn't want to deal with it on my birthday. I didn't even want to open the app, but the notifications were visible every time I picked up the phone. I mentioned it to Aaron. I tried to be casual, like, "Remember Rick from school? He's kind of going overboard today." She looked at my phone and scrolled for a bit, then gave it back and said, "If someone's ruining your birthday, they're not a friend." That stuck with me. I went into the settings and blocked him. It felt harsh, but I needed the quiet. My phone finally stopped lighting up. I left it inside and helped serve cake. But 20 minutes later, it started again. Same kinds of messages. But from a different name, Rick returns. It had the same profile pic, cropped from the one he'd used before. Same style of talking. "You didn't have to do that. I just wanted to see your face. Don't act like this is new." Then, the ones that made me pause. "You always acted like you were better. You're not. You make people do dumb things." I didn't reply. I didn't react. I didn't open the app again. I just stared at the last message for a while. The party kept going around me. Someone started a game of charades. Laughter floated through the windows. I stood by the kitchen table with my phone in my hand and stared at the words. Then I turned it face down. I reported the account to the platform, checking the box for self-harm threats and adding a short explanation. Something like, "He sent messages implying harm to himself and won't stop creating new accounts." The reply came back faster than I expected. "This account has been restricted for violating community guidelines." It was clear. Final. Still, I didn't feel like it was over. Like the shadow of it all had stayed behind. That night I looked up mutual friends from high school, people I hadn't talked to in years, and sent a few quiet messages asking if they'd heard from Rick lately. One of them, Sarah, answered. She said he'd been dealing with obsessive behavior since university and had been in and out of therapy. Not dangerous, she said. Just doesn't understand when to stop. Another classmate told me Rick had dropped off social media before for a while, then came back with new usernames, repeating the same patterns with different people. It made my skin crawl a bit. I told my parents. It wasn't a big dramatic sit-down, just while clearing plates after dinner. My dad didn't say much, but my mom insisted I should talk to Rick's family. They need to know, she said, especially if he's slipping again. She helped me find an old landline number. I called the next morning. His mom answered. She sounded tired but not surprised. I explained that Rick had been messaging me, and it got intense, and I thought someone should know. There was a pause. Then she said, "Thank you for saying something. We'll make sure his phone goes back to the doctor." That was it. No excuses, no denial, just tired gratitude. After the call, something settled. I didn't feel great, but I felt done. No more typing bubbles popping up in the chat. No more new names trying to claw their way through my inbox. The next day felt still, like the air had cleared. I kept expecting another vibration, another name I didn't recognize, but it never came. I did chores, cleaned the counters, answered emails. At one point, I stared too long at a calendar invite and laughed at myself. It was normal life again. That afternoon, I posted something. Just a short message. Boundaries aren't a mood, they're safety. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for keeping them. I didn't expect much, but it got shared a bunch. People commented with their own stories, way too similar to mine. One girl said a guy from her work DM'd every morning at 6 a.m. Another said someone kept sending playlists with sad songs when she didn't reply. Reading those made me feel less isolated. Not better, but less alone. That night, I treated myself to coffee with whipped cream. I normally skip sugar, but it felt like the right kind of small celebration. Aaron came by, handed me a tiny wrapped thing, just a keychain. A little shield. Shiny, cheap metal, kinda dorky. "So you don't forget to say no," she said. I clipped it on immediately. Later, I opened my settings. Blocked accounts, cleared. Message history with Rick, deleted. It wasn't like it erased anything, but it was one more step. I didn't feel naive anymore. Not bitter either. Just sharper. Like I'd finally seen where the edges really were. That night I fell asleep fast. No buzzing. No flashing icons on the lock screen. Just quiet. Now, when the app says, "You have a new birthday message," I open it with less tension. I know better. Not everyone who reaches out deserves space in your life, even if they used to sit next to you in math class. They say Rick is staying with his uncle now, working on a farm, away from phones and posts and timelines. I hope it's true. I really do. I hope the silence is helping him. But I don't have his number anymore, and I won't look for it. Sometimes I still check my privacy settings, like you check a seatbelt before driving. Not because I expect a crash, but because I've learned not to skip that step. The shield Aaron gave me still hangs on my dorm keys. It makes this little clink when I unlock my door. It reminds me that boundaries aren't visible, but they hold strong if you don't lower them. The first big summer bonfire felt like something out of a movie. Music blasting from pickup trucks, rows of corn stretching forever, strangers laughing like old friends. The smell of burnt marshmallows and spilled beer mixed with warm dust in the air. I was standing near the edge of the field holding a soda, trying not to look like I didn't belong. That's when she walked up. Rachel. Light denim jacket, ponytail, and a smile that made you feel like the only one there. She asked if we could take a picture. We leaned in close, her arm brushing mine, and she snapped a selfie. A minute later, I got a notification. Rayglow added you on Snap. That was her. The night went on, and we didn't talk much more, but I caught her glance my way once or twice. When I left, I couldn't stop replaying how her eyes caught the reflection of the firelight. I wasn't used to this kind of attention. Girls like her didn't talk to guys like me, but something felt different. The next morning, I opened my phone and saw a new Snap story. It was a photo of my work boots on the porch. Her caption said, "Cute footprints." I looked around. She hadn't knocked or messaged, just took the photo and left. I figured it was flirting. Weird flirting, but I wasn't about to question it. I worked construction with my uncle all summer. I wasn't smooth, and I sure as hell didn't wear cologne, but maybe that's what she liked. We started snapping every couple days. Nothing crazy. Photos of dogs, her iced coffee, a video of me trying to saw through a steel pipe. She replied, "To that one." After a few weeks, she sent me a message. "Want to meet again? Where nothing gets in the way of the stars." Then she dropped a geopin. No name, just the pin. It was a crossroad deep into the fields. 2 dirt paths, a dot in the middle of nowhere. It sounded like the start of a campfire story. That's probably what made it cool. I didn't ask questions, just told her I was in. That evening, I borrowed my dad's pickup. He was out of town with my mom for the weekend, so I had time. I tossed a blanket in the back, filled a thermos with coffee, and packed a flashlight just in case. The GPS took me out past the main roads. Asphalt turned to gravel, then gravel to dust. Corn on both sides, tall enough to block everything else out. I turned the music off and opened the window. The air smelled dry and sharp, like cracked earth and diesel. I drove slow, not wanting to miss the turn. The sun had already dropped, and my headlights were the only thing keeping the dark from swallowing the truck. According to the map, I was close. Just one more turn. There was no signal, no signs, no houses, just the never-ending corn and the soft crunch of tires over dirt. Up ahead, the road widened into a small clearing. Right in the middle of the path, a rusted SUV was parked sideways, like it had broken down and rolled to a stop. The hood was dented. The front bumper hung low. My headlights lit the side of the vehicle and part of the windshield, but I couldn't see anyone inside. Just blackness beyond the glass. I slowed the truck and stopped maybe 20 feet away. No movement, no sound. I waited a few seconds, then grabbed my phone to message Rachel, but there was no reception. 0 bars. I held it up toward the windshield like that would help. Nothing. I leaned out the window, listening. Still nothing. Just a light breeze making the corn rustle, soft and steady. That's when I saw them. In the rearview mirror, far behind me, 2 sets of headlights flared to life. Bright, maybe half a mile back. I turned around fast and looked through the back window. The lights were approaching, slow at first, then picking up speed. 2 vehicles. Same height, same distance apart, moving in sync. My heart jumped straight up into my throat. The SUV in front suddenly coughed to life. Its engine rumbled, loud and deep, but it didn't move. Just sat there, vibrating, headlights still off. The sound made my chest tighten. Behind me, the other 2 sets of headlights were getting closer. Fast now. The dust they kicked up was thick, swirling around like smoke, catching the glow of their beams. I looked left and right. No road. Just cornfields. I checked the mirror again, still coming. I wasn't waiting to see who stepped out. I jerked the wheel to the right, hit the gas, and aimed for the ditch. The truck slammed down hard and the front tires bounced up. I heard a loud crack and felt the rear end dip weird. Glanced back and saw something drag. I'd clipped a drainage pipe. The bumper was barely hanging on now. I didn't stop. I kept going, tearing through the corn. Stalks smashed against the windshield and mirrors. One hit hard enough to crack the passenger side glass. The field went on longer than I thought. Every few seconds I expected to hit a fence or hole, but I kept pressing down on the gas. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse. Rachel standing beside the SUV. A man was with her. He looked older, way older. Could have been her dad, or someone worse. Neither of them moved to help. They just stood there, staring as I crashed through their setup. I didn't turn, didn't slow down. The corn eventually gave way to a gravel slope, and then the wheels touched pavement again. I was back on a real road. The second my phone lit up with signal, I hit the emergency call and dropped a pin. Told the operator exactly what happened, shaky and fast, not caring how insane it sounded. They said help was on the way. Cops showed up maybe 30 minutes later. I met them back at the crossroad with another unit. By then, the place was empty. The SUV was gone. No Rachel, no headlights, just tire marks and flattened corn, and my bumper lying on the side of the road like a dead limb. They took statements. I gave them the screenshots, the snap messages, the photo of my boots. They asked if I knew her real name. I didn't. Rayglow was all I had. By morning, the account had vanished. Not just deactivated, deleted. Like it was never there. They said they'd investigate, but without geotags or a known person behind the messages, there wasn't much to go on. The cornfield didn't have any surveillance, and those messages could have been sent from anywhere. Even the photo of the boots didn't prove anything. No way to tell it was my porch, not just some deck that looked like it. I could see it in their eyes. They thought I imagined half of it, or was trying to cover up something dumber. Back at home, I had to explain the damage to the truck. My dad just stood there, stared at the back and said, "Okay." Then he went inside and spent the next hour on the phone with the insurance. Didn't ask anything else. Didn't need to. He knew something serious had happened, even if I couldn't explain it right. After that night, I started locking the gates around the property, even during the day. Before, I'd leave them wide open while working in the barn or out in the field. Now, I checked them twice. My friends started joking that I turned into an old man, that I was paranoid. They'd slap the hood of the pickup and say stuff like, "Still worried about corn monsters?" But they didn't see the dust. They didn't hear the sound of those engines. I did. The police gave me a printed warning. Don't engage with anonymous accounts without real profile pictures, especially if they try to meet in remote areas. It was stapled to the back of their report. I kept it in my glove box for a few months, like some kind of weird reminder. Most nights were quiet, but sometimes, when the wind moves through the stalks just right, it sounds like a low growl. Like the old SUV's engine waiting for me out there again. The pickup still sits in our garage. The bumper was replaced, but the body has a few new dents and scrapes the insurance didn't cover. Dad didn't push it, just said, "You drive it now. Be smart." After everything, I went through my snap list and deleted almost everyone I didn't know in real life. Only kept the ones I'd seen face to face. Even then, sometimes I get random ads. "Ray something wants to add you." I don't even read the full name anymore. I swipe left before I finish the first few letters. No profile photo, no dice. Our neighbor, a retired mechanic, stopped by the next month. He said he found my bumper, no joke, a full mile from where the cops said I got cut off. Must have ripped off completely and kept going. He tossed it in the bed of my truck, shrugged, and walked off. Later, the insurance marked the claim accidental off-road damage. Case closed. But that's the thing. The whole circle of what happened, it closed without answers, without justice. Just a clean report and a list of bad decisions that led to one long, silent escape. I still like stargazing. Always have. But now I don't leave the yard. I don't drive past the edge of our fields at night. If I want to see the sky, I do it from the back porch, where I can lock the door behind me. The brightest fire can't save you from the dark if you believe every message someone sends. I was lying on the couch scrolling through trending videos while my parents were watching the evening news. It was one of those usual weekdays. Nothing special, just background noise from the TV and the dim light of the hallway lamp. I had a blanket half over me, phone in hand, just killing time before bed. The app I was using popped up a suggestion. Add quick friends. It looked like some kind of random pairing thing, probably a new feature. I didn't really care. I just tapped it, not even thinking twice. 5 minutes later, I got a notification. It was a photo. No name, no caption, just an image. Looked like a dark road, probably taken from inside a car. The headlights lit up the empty asphalt, the center line running straight down. Kind of eerie, but not unusual. I figured someone was driving home late, maybe showing off their lonely commute or whatever. I tapped to the next one. The second photo made me sit up. It was the entrance to our building. I recognized the yellow mailbox by the side of the door, the small crack on the bottom step. At first, I tried to brush it off. Could be someone else's building, right? I told myself maybe these mailboxes are common. Maybe it just looks like ours. Then came the third photo. This one showed a stairwell. Not just any stairwell. Ours. Same green walls, same chipped paint on the handrail. But this was taken from inside. From the middle of the stairs, angled downward like someone was walking up and paused to take the picture. I yelped. It wasn't loud, but sharp enough that Dad turned the TV off immediately. He and Mom both looked at me. I didn't say anything at first, just handed over the phone. Dad squinted at the screen, then stood up slowly. Mom came over too, frowning before she even saw it. She always hated this new social stuff. Said it opens doors to strangers. This time, I couldn't argue. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The room felt quiet in a way I didn't like the walls were listening. Then the smell of fried onions drifted in from the kitchen, sharp and greasy, but I felt like the air was colder, like someone had just opened a window that shouldn't be open. Dad went to check the door. He didn't say anything, just grabbed the handle and gave it a tug. Then he looked at the chain. Still locked. No signs of force. He opened it slightly to check the hallway, then closed it back and slid the chain again. Mom was already by the landline, dialing the local station. I heard her giving our address, then repeating the word, photos. Her voice stayed steady, but I could see how tense she was by the way she held the receiver with both hands, fingers tight. I tried to block the sender, but just before I could confirm, another image came in. Fourth one. My hands shook a little as I tapped it open. It was our kitchen. Not from the doorway, not a wide shot. It was from inside, close to the sink. You could see the pile of dishes in the rack, still wet. The mug with the crack on the handle, the yellow sponge we keep on the left side of the basin. I turned my head and looked at the real thing. It was the exact same. Same lighting, same mess. Someone had just taken that photo. Minutes ago. I didn't even say anything this time. I showed it to Dad. He didn't speak either. He just walked to the kitchen and stood still. Then he turned and motioned toward the back door. The one that leads out to the courtyard. It's got a mesh panel on the bottom half, metal and plastic woven together. It's old and a bit loose. We never used that door in winter. The mesh was torn, not cut clean, but pushed through. Snow had drifted in over the threshold, but some of it was melting into puddles on the linoleum. Wet prints stretched inward. Just a few, not many, but they were definitely footprints. Not boots. Something thinner. Maybe sneakers. We didn't need to talk. We all moved at once, back into the living room, turning off the main light as we went. The shadows from the TV were gone, and the only glow came from a hallway bulb. We sat close, not touching, but not far. Nobody checked their phones. We just listened. A drop of water fell from the kitchen faucet. Then another. The sound echoed more than usual. Everything else was silent. No more photos, no more messages. Then we heard it. Sirens, not too far off. They got louder fast, tires crunching snow in the alley. Red and blue flashed through the curtains as two cars pulled up outside. Doors opened and slammed. Boots on pavement. We opened the door before they could ring. Two officers came in, one checking the hallway, the other asking questions fast. We explained as quick as we could, showed the photos. They moved through the apartment, checked every room, even the closets. But the person was gone. In the back courtyard, near the wall where the snow was deeper, they found a tablet. No case, just a bare screen. The battery was low. The officer said the device was reported stolen a week ago from the public library 2 neighborhoods over. No one saw who took it. It disappeared during a weekend afternoon, just vanished from the electronics corner where people watch YouTube or check email. The tablet had several user profiles saved, switchable with one tap. Whoever used it last didn't bother logging out. One of the accounts had my photos and its message history. The person was still unknown. That night we replaced the back door lock. Dad installed a new latch himself. We got a basic alarm system too, with a keypad near the front door. It wasn't much, but at least it beeped when doors opened. The snow outside had crusted over again by then, erasing the footprints. I stopped opening random friend requests, deleted app notifications without checking. Didn't want to see any more images. But the fear had already set in. It wasn't about the photos anymore. It was about not knowing. About how easy it was for someone to step into our lives and vanish again. A few days later, the school counselor gave a lecture about online safety. All 10th graders in the auditorium, lights dimmed, projector humming. He spoke about privacy settings, stranger danger, all the usual stuff. I didn't say anything, just crossed my arms and stared ahead like my teeth were clenched. I felt like everyone could hear my thoughts bouncing off the walls. At night, I started hearing soft noises. Shuffling, taps, tiny creaks in the floor. It was probably the neighbor's cat. I told myself that over and over. But the silence was worse. Silence made everything louder. The pipes settling, wind against the window. Even the fridge motor sounded like breathing. I started keeping a flashlight under my pillow, just in case. 2 weeks passed. The tablet didn't help much. Police said it was clean. No fingerprints, no serial number. Scratched off, probably by the thief. The SIM was pulled. It wasn't traceable. No way to tie it back to a face or name. The detectives started using phrases like, "The case is dragging," and "We're monitoring." I stopped expecting answers. Still, I couldn't stop checking. Every time I opened our door, I looked down at the threshold, searching for a smudge, a wet mark, anything out of place. Most of the time there was nothing, but I still checked. My parents tried to hide it, but I noticed they were taking turns staying up late. First Mom, then Dad. Lights dimmed, TV on low volume, pretending to relax but really listening. They started nodding off in the armchair, waking with stiff necks and eye bags. Fear fades, but exhaustion always wins. To cope, I made up a game. In the evenings, I'd sit by the window and count how many apartment windows had lights on. It gave me something to do, something that made sense. Sometimes I'd count to 12, sometimes 15. Most people in the building opposite followed a routine. Same windows, same hours. But one night I noticed something strange. There was a window on the 4th floor, square and narrow with yellow curtains. The light would turn off the moment I looked at it. Not immediately, just a second after my eyes landed. I tested it, looked away, waited, looked back. The light snapped off. I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe they just went to bed early. But my heart logged it like evidence. Small thing. Silent. But real. From then on, I watched that window last. Always last. Spring started to melt the snow. The wind changed. You could open windows during the day now without freezing. But I still locked the doors, even at noon. Habit, maybe. Or something deeper. One morning my phone buzzed. The app, again. Memory from 1 year ago. A little banner with a blurred photo in the background. I didn't tap it. Just stared at the screen until the light dimmed. Things at home began to return to normal. Dad fixed the broken railing on the porch. Mom baked more often. We started leaving the hallway light off again at night. But the nervous edge didn't disappear. It just hid better. In normal sounds. The click of the lock. The churn of the washing machine. The soft thud of shoes being taken off by the door. Maybe the person gave up. Maybe they just wanted to scare us. Or maybe they were watching to see how long we'd stay scared. Waiting for the tension to ease. People like happy endings. A rescue. An arrest. A final scene where someone is safe in the back of a police car. But that never came. There was no 5th photo. Not yet. So I keep living like it's still coming. It started with a click. A casual, almost lazy click of metal, like someone opening a pen. But it wasn't a pen. It was a folding knife. And the guy who pulled it out just grinned like it was part of the game. There were 4 of us. Me, Dima, Yana, and Artur. We'd heard about this new loft-style cafe that hosted board game nights every Friday. Place smelled like fresh espresso and wood varnish. Pretty packed, no surprise. So we grabbed a small table near the window. A few minutes later, this tall guy in a hoodie came over and asked if he could join. Said there weren't any seats left. His voice was flat, but not rude. "Name's Tom," he said. "Needed a break from toxic relationships." We all gave each other a look but shrugged. It was a public game night. People mix, that's the point. He sat down without waiting for a response and pulled a chair real close. Didn't bring his own game, but when we offered him a spot in ours, he nodded and joined like he'd been part of the group all along. His moves in the game were quick, too quick. He didn't really care about the rules. Kept leaning forward, too close to the pieces, cracking his knuckles when someone took too long. Loud, sharp, popping sounds. About 20 minutes in, he started talking more, random stuff about his ex, about how people fake being nice. Dima tried to steer the convo back to the game. Yana just laughed awkwardly. Then came the knife. He reached into his hoodie, pulled out this black folding blade, flipped it open with that click, and held it there for a second. Just enough to make everyone freeze. Then he laughed, not loud, more like a breath through the nose. Said something like, "You guys ever play the real games?" I took a quick photo when he wasn't looking. My brother's into knives. He does martial arts, collects gear. Figured he'd know the model. Tom noticed the flash but didn't say anything. A few minutes later, he asked for my snap. I gave it without thinking. It was instinct, almost like handing someone a lighter. Didn't even use Snap much. He didn't stay long after that. Said he had to bounce and disappeared into the back hallway without saying goodbye. We wrapped up our game and didn't talk about it much. Just figured he was another socially weird guy at a game night. The first message came while we were still packing up. It'll be easier with you. No context, no picture, just that. We kind of laughed it off, said maybe it was part of some RG thing he was playing. We nodded at the barista on our way out and stepped into the night. It had rained earlier, those fine, misty drizzles that leave the pavement shiny. The parking lot lights reflected in long yellow streaks across the wet asphalt. Dima offered us all a ride, and we split up at the crossroads like usual. I didn't think much about the message until I got home. Changed into a hoodie, grabbed a snack, sat on the couch. My phone buzzed again. Snap from Tom. It was a photo. Close up. His hand, palm up. In the middle, the knife. Blade open. Caption said, "Do you trust me?" I just stared. It wasn't threatening exactly. Not directly. But it felt off. I didn't reply. Took a screenshot instead. He'd see that, sure, but I didn't care. Next couple of days, he started sending more. Always quiet, no message alerts. I'd muted him, but my fingers kept checking anyway. He'd send a photo of a coffee cup on the same table where we'd played. The angle was low, like he wanted me to notice something in the background. Another day, it was the gate at the college I go to, taken from the front steps. Timing looked like just before my class ended. That made me pause. Didn't block him, though. Can't explain why. Maybe part of me wanted to know what he'd send next. Maybe I thought it was nothing. Then I saw him again. Friday, same cafe, same board game night. He was already there when we came in, sitting alone at the back, sipping coffee. Hoodie up, watching the door. When I walked past, he smiled like a salesman, big but hollow, like he wasn't really happy to see me, just pleased I showed up. We started talking about it in the group chat. Should we block him? Report it? Go to the police? Everyone had their own idea. My friend Matt said the best move was to ignore him, act like he didn't exist, and change our usual gaming schedule. We agreed. Switched up the times, stopped posting where we'd be. When we showed up to the cafe, we picked new tables every time. Far corners, tucked near walls, and made sure no empty chairs were left open. Tom still came. Sometimes he'd be early, already hanging around when we arrived. But when he saw us sitting full, no open spots, he'd drift toward other groups or sit alone pretending to scroll his phone. He stopped pulling out the knife, stopped trying to talk to us. But he still watched. Snapchat was a mess. His messages just sat there, unopened. He sent pictures that didn't make sense. Dust on asphalt, a crumpled paper with random numbers, screenshots with half sentences like, "She said no but." I never opened them. Just the preview was enough. I locked down my account, made my stories private. Only friends I'd met face to face could see anything. After that, messages slowed down. A few a week, then just one or two. Always vague. No words. I didn't respond. I didn't block him either. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to know if he was nearby again. Maybe I wanted a warning. Then, one day, he just vanished. It was a Friday, and the cafe was quieter than usual. Rain had started early, and not many people showed up. I asked the barista, the same girl who always ran game night. "Hey, that guy, the tall one in the hoodie, Tom, he's not around anymore?" She shook her head. "He hasn't booked in weeks," she said. "Maybe he moved on." It should have felt like good news. And we did relax a bit, but none of us were the same. Dima started double-locking his bike even during day hours. Yana kept her pepper spray clipped inside her bag now. Me? I started handing over my ID when I ordered drinks, just so they wouldn't call my name out loud. I'd never done that before. I added a mini pepper spray to my backpack. Lightweight, red plastic cap. My brother had given me a quick rundown, how to hold it, when to spray. He also showed me a couple basic moves. Nothing fancy, just ways to break a grip or twist out of someone's hand. We practiced in the hallway one Sunday. I didn't tell anyone else. Almost 3 weeks went by without a single notification. Not even from friends. Tom's chat on Snap turned gray, like the app marked it as inactive. I didn't trust it. Still, the silence gave us space to breathe, but not forget. Now, I only reply to people I've seen in real life. I scroll back through old pictures sometimes. It's weird how different things look now. That night, the board game, the knife. Everything seemed normal right until it wasn't. It takes just a few seconds for a sharp object to turn a simple evening into something you carry in your gut for weeks. The cafe still smells like coffee, always does. But we sit closer to the bar now. Open view, more people, easier exit. We still come, still play. It's not about pretending it didn't happen. It's about not letting it take more than it already did. Tom never came back for the knife. Or maybe he just brought it somewhere else. Maybe there's another table, another group who doesn't know yet what he's like. There's a whistle on my keychain now. My sister gave it to me. Bright orange, ugly, loud. I used to think stuff like that was overkill. Now I get it. Trust comes back slow. But the game's still worth playing, if you remember the rules outside the board. The world feels unarmed at first glance, but only at first. The walls were so thin I could hear someone sneeze 2 rooms down. That was my first thought when I moved into the new block on the 3rd floor at the start of the semester. My new room had this strange echo to it. Every footstep, every creak of the bed, felt amplified. The floor was this pale linoleum with small scratches like someone had dragged furniture around over and over. The radiator clanked every hour or so like it was alive. I figured I'd get used to it. My roommate was already there when I arrived. He introduced himself in a flat voice. "Rainer," he said, not offering a handshake. Tall guy, skinny, black-framed glasses that were a bit too thick, like he picked them from a thrift store bin. He wore the same gray hoodie for the first 3 days and didn't seem too interested in talking. We exchanged a few sentences, mostly about who takes which shelf in the fridge. After that, we stayed in our own corners. That same night, someone named Annie added me on Snap. I didn't recognize her. No mutual friends. But her avatar showed an album cover from one of my favorite bands, something most people around here wouldn't know. I accepted. She messaged within minutes. We chatted a bit. She asked about music, about gigs I've been to. I told her I had tickets for a small concert next weekend. She joked that I should take her with me. It felt random, but not unwelcome. Meanwhile, Rainer had this weird nighttime routine. The lights would stay on until 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd wake up to the soft sound of something shifting. Drawers opening, maybe. It wasn't loud, but it was enough. Once, I heard the legs of his chair scrape slowly across the floor, stop, then go back again. I thought maybe he was just a light sleeper or couldn't settle in yet. Still, it made falling asleep harder each night. By the 4th night, I kept earbuds in. Didn't help much. I'd catch short sleep, wake up to the light, feel that weird pressure in the room. I stopped asking if he was okay or needed anything. He didn't speak much anyway. He just nodded or gave one-word replies. I figured he was just introverted, Annie messaged often, more than I expected. Always after 10 p.m., always short questions. At first, it was casual stuff. What time I go to bed, if I snore, if I prefer coffee or tea. Then it turned more personal. Where do you keep important stuff? Like your passport or money? She asked once. I sent back a laughing emoji. What are you planning? A heist? She replied, haha, just curious. I didn't think much of it. The messages didn't feel threatening, just odd. Maybe she was just flirty in a weird way. I played along, gave fake answers most of the time. I said I kept stuff taped behind my bed frame. Truth was, my important stuff was locked in my suitcase under my bed. She also asked weirdly specific things like, which side of the bed do you sleep on? Or, would you notice if something was moved while you slept? Again, I joked it off. 3 nights in a row, I barely slept more than an hour. The sound of Rainer moving around got more frequent. I started recognizing patterns. He'd shift something around right after I turned off my light. One night I kept mine on just to see what he'd do. He still moved, slower maybe, but still there. Once, I heard the zipper of my suitcase shift. Not opened, just touched. I couldn't say anything. I wasn't even sure if it was real. I started doubting myself, like maybe I imagined some of it. But on the 4th night, I opened my eyes at around 3:15 a.m. and saw Rainer crouched next to my suitcase. The light from his side of the room cast his shadow over the bag. He was staring into it with this blank look, not rummaging, just holding the flap open like he was reading something inside. He didn't flinch when I moved. I said, "What are you doing?" He looked up slowly and said, "Looking for my charger." His voice was so calm, it made me pause. I didn't believe him. My charger was plugged into the wall beside my bed. His charger was always by his desk, but I didn't call him out. I just said, "All right," and pretended to roll over and go back to sleep. But I stayed awake until sunrise. In the morning, he was gone when I got up. I walked over to his side of the room. I don't know what I was looking for. Just something. His desk was messy as always, covered in notebooks and 2 empty energy drink cans. But his phone was sitting there, screen face up. As I looked, a notification popped up. Snapchat. From Annie. It said, "You still talking to him?" I didn't say a word to him that morning. I packed my essentials, wallet, documents, chargers, into my gym bag and left the rest behind. Walked straight to the dorm supervisor's office, kept my voice steady while explaining. I told her everything. The questions Annie asked, the night I saw him at my suitcase, the notification. I showed her the chat log, my hands tight on the phone so they wouldn't shake. She narrowed her eyes when she saw the name on the screen. She called security right away. 2 guards walked with us back to the room. The door was unlocked. His stuff was still there. Bed unmade, desk messy, chargers in place, books stacked, nothing missing. But Rainer was gone. It was like he'd stepped out for class. Only it was noon, and his backpack was still under the desk. Security asked if I was sure I saw him last night. I nodded. They checked the building cameras. The hallway footage played normally until about an hour before I went to the office. Then the screen glitched, just cut out, replaced by static. They said they'd check the server logs. I didn't wait around to hear more. I asked for a transfer. By evening, I had a new room in the older dorm on the east side of campus. Smaller, dimmer, but quieter. The mattress was stiff, unfamiliar. I lay down fully clothed, bag next to me. Even then, I didn't sleep. Just stared at the door. Every faint creak made my muscles tense. Calls started coming the next day. Unknown numbers, no voicemail. I didn't answer. They never left messages. But every time I checked the screen, there was this heavy feeling, like maybe the next call would speak. Annie reappeared on Snap. New accounts, same album cover. Sometimes a slightly different name, sometimes identical. I blocked each one without opening the chats. One even had my photo as the Bitmoji avatar's background. I stopped using Snap, deleted the app. I told the dorm supervisor. She said the case had been passed to the administration and forwarded to the police, but they had little to go on. Rayner's real student records were thin. Exchange papers, no local ID on file, emergency contact listed as a disconnected number. The name matched the housing list, but everything else was vague. No one in class remembered speaking with him. One guy said he sat in the back and never answered questions. I added a padlock to my suitcase, then replaced it with a combination one. It felt silly, but it helped. I started sleeping again, short hours at a time. I kept the lock in my hand the first few nights. People around me noticed I was jumpy. My new roommate made jokes, asked if I was running spy missions, hiding gold bars, that kind of thing. I smiled when they laughed, said nothing. Better they think I was paranoid than tell them the truth. Weeks passed. The account stopped reappearing. The calls slowed down, then stopped. I changed my number and got a new SIM. Set everything to private. Even locked down my class schedule on the campus portal. A month later, the dorm felt normal again, but some things stuck. I flinched when the corridor lights flickered. If I heard someone walk past my door late at night, I waited until the steps faded before I moved. Maybe Rayner was just a messed up guy. Someone with no social cues who played games through screens. Maybe Annie was a prank. Maybe none of it was personal. But I couldn't shake the idea that he knew exactly who I was before I moved in. That maybe I wasn't the first. Now, when someone new adds me on any app, I look twice. I check usernames. I tap through profiles, watch for patterns. I don't accept quick ads anymore. I ask classmates to meet in person before I give out contact info. I prefer the kitchen now. Open space, real eyes, real voices. A few nights ago, I had a friend over. We sat on the floor with a speaker between us, playing that same album from Annie's avatar. Only this time, no phones, just music. The chords were the same, the lyrics unchanged. But something had shifted. I let the song finish before saying a word. It started with a message that looked like nostalgia. I had just moved into a small townhouse near the university area, cheap and cramped, but good enough, clean enough. The neighborhood was quiet, mostly student housing, and a couple of old residents who kept to themselves. My window faced the shared lawn where people sometimes walked dogs or had small get-togethers. Nothing ever seemed out of place. It felt like a fresh start. A week in, I got a message from a username I didn't recognize right away. Sam Old Times. It had a photo attached. A grainy shot of our old high school courtyard. Empty, but recognizable. The benches near the back fence, the cracked basketball court. The caption read, "Remember?" I replied with something neutral, polite. Wow, blast from the past. Yeah, I remember. A few minutes later came another message. Let's catch up? Drive around the old places? Be like back then. I paused before replying. It didn't seem strange. We all grew up in a small town. People came and went, sometimes circled back. I assumed it was Sam Walker, or maybe that kid Jason who used to go by Sam online. The message didn't seem threatening. If anything, it seemed like a nice gesture. We set a time. Friday, around 6:30. Just a quick ride, a nostalgic drive before sunset. It had cooled off in the evenings lately, so I pulled out my old zip-up hoodie from the storage bin. Gray, stretched out at the cuffs. The sleeves still had ink stains near the wrist. I checked my phone again. No new messages. Just the plan. Out front at 6:30. The white sedan pulled up exactly on time. Tinted windows, nothing fancy. College license plate frame from the local campus, clean exterior. The engine idled low. I couldn't see inside clearly, but the shape of the person in the driver's seat looked familiar. Lean shoulders, hand drumming the steering wheel in the same way I'd seen 100 times before. I hesitated on the porch. Then the door opened, and it was Jack. Jack, my former neighbor, the one I'd moved away from. He didn't say anything right away, just smiled and nodded at the passenger seat. My chest tightened. I stayed still. "Hey," he finally said, casual like we were in line at the grocery store. "Didn't expect you to take so long." I didn't answer. I turned and walked back to my door without looking back. Heard the car door close behind me. Heard footsteps crunch the gravel. I got the door open and stepped inside, heart hammering, hands stiff. The townhouse layout was simple. A straight hallway with the kitchen on the left, stairs on the right, and the main room dead ahead. I locked the door, slid the chain across, and stepped back just as the handle turned. Jack was on the other side, looking through the narrow gap between the door and the frame. His eye met mine. Calm. Too calm. He jiggled the handle once, twice, then leaned in. "Come on. Don't be like this," he said, voice muffled. I didn't say anything. My hand gripped the edge of the door hard enough to ache. He kept looking through the gap, just standing there like he had all the time in the world. I stepped back and yelled, loud, "Get out! Someone call the police!" The sound bounced through the stairwell. Doors opened above. I heard a voice, someone asking what was going on. Another student opened their door across the hall and peered out. A third stood at the top of the stairs holding a phone. Jack looked around, slowly. He backed away one step, then turned and walked back toward the car, hands in his pockets like nothing had happened. He got in, shut the door, and peeled off without looking back. I stood there with the chain still across the door, chest tight. My phone was on the counter. I called 911, tried to explain everything clearly. I gave the plate number, told them what he looked like. The operator kept asking questions. I answered them all. After I hung up, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I sat on the floor near the radiator until my neighbor from upstairs came down and knocked. She handed me a metal mug with hot tea. The handle was warm. I gripped it hard enough that it clinked against the rim. The police arrived about 20 minutes after my call. They came in 2 cars, plainclothes detectives and 1 uniformed officer. A few neighbors were still in the hallway when they entered, and one of the officers asked everyone to return to their apartments while they checked the building. I led them through the entrance hall, showed them the chain lock, explained how he tried the handle, and looked through the gap. My voice was dry from talking. They asked for the doorbell camera. Thankfully, the landlord had installed a simple system facing the shared front walkway. One of the officers plugged a small screen into the unit. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Jack's figure walking up the steps, standing at my door, then turning back to his car. His face showed only in profile. It was enough. They recognized the name when I gave it. One detective nodded. "Yeah, we've had calls before. Former address still in town?" I confirmed it. Jack had showed up at my previous rental more than once, unannounced, always saying the same thing. "Just wanted to see how you were." I'd moved partly because of him. The officer took down my full statement while the detective went around knocking on the neighbors' doors. A few students gave what they saw. One girl said she heard yelling. Another described the white sedan. One of the guys upstairs confirmed the timing. The detective handed me a card, and told me to consider filing for a protective order. He said it calmly, like he'd said it 100 times. I called the campus legal aid group the next day. They connected me with an attorney who helped draft the request. She walked me through the forms and warned me it might take a hearing. The court date was the following week. I sat in the back of a small courtroom, filing papers with clammy hands. Jack was there. He looked the same. Button-down shirt, calm face, like he didn't think any of this mattered. When he spoke, he told the judge he only wanted to talk things out, said he thought we had unfinished history. The judge didn't look moved. After 10 minutes, the order was signed. Jack was prohibited from coming within 300 feet of me or my residence. I walked out of the courthouse with a copy of the paperwork in my bag. The wind blew hard across the parking lot, and I remember gripping the folder tight like it was a shield. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's story, signing documents under a government seal, saying phrases like protective order and pattern of behavior, like being in a drama, except the soundtrack was traffic and the hallway buzz of fluorescent lights. It stayed quiet for about a week. Then one morning, on the way to class, I found a piece of paper tucked under the windshield wiper of my car. No writing. Just an empty envelope, sealed. No return address. The edges were slightly damp from morning fog. I didn't touch it. Called the non-emergency line right away. An officer came out and placed the envelope into a plastic evidence bag. He wore gloves, said it could be nothing, but that I'd done the right thing. They dusted it for prints later. I got a call saying they lifted partials, but nothing conclusive. The doorbell cam had picked up someone walking across the front lot around 3:40 a.m. Hooded sweatshirt, face turned down, too dark to ID. I ordered new locks that day. Had the landlord approve a smart deadbolt with a sensor alert. Paid extra for a door alarm that would text me if it was opened without the app. I told the neighbors, gave my contact details. A group chat started with everyone in the block. Emergency messages only, no spam. Just a fast way to reach help. The white sedan didn't return. Or at least, no one saw it again. But I checked every rearview mirror for a while. On my way to campus. At the grocery store. At night, when the lot was quiet and the street lamps cast shadows on the parked cars, I'd scan every windshield. Nothing matched. But I still looked. School moved forward. Midterms passed, and my thesis project took over most of my nights. Long hours in the library. I kept my phone charged and my bag packed with the emergency contact file the lawyer had helped me build. Court order, copies of the complaint, campus security phone numbers. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'd wake up to the sound of a car outside. Low engine idling, then moving on. It was usually the cleaning van or delivery trucks. But I still got up and looked through the blinds, phone in hand. The motion light outside the entrance caught raccoons more often than people. The paper restraining order was just that. Paper. But it made a line I could point to. A boundary. One that could turn a call into action if needed. That helped. I got to know my neighbors better. Not just faces in the hallway anymore. A few of them left notes on my door after the court date, offering to walk with me if I needed company at night. Someone in the unit next door helped set up a second motion light above the shared stairwell. That might have been the best part of all this, if anything good came from it. The quiet bond that built from shared caution. From knowing someone was a door away if I needed to yell. That my voice would be heard. I sleep lighter now. Still jump at engines sometimes. Still glance at inbox messages with an extra pause before clicking. But I'm safer than I was. And smarter. I don't ignore usernames anymore. I don't dismiss quiet patterns. And I never assume that a familiar name means a safe face. It was late Friday night, music buzzing through a cheap Bluetooth speaker on the kitchen counter, and a tray of store-bought cupcakes laid out like it was someone's birthday. We weren't throwing a real party, just 5 of us hanging out before heading to Josh's place later. My phone buzzed on the countertop. I checked the screen. Snap from X11C1. Never seen that username before. I opened it. It was a photo of the front entrance of our school. The caption read, "I see you." The picture was clear enough to recognize the place, but I didn't think much of it at first. Thought it was some freshman messing around with an alt account, trying to prank upperclassmen. Stuff like that happens every year, especially early in the semester. Half an hour later, another snap came through. Same sender. This time it was a photo of my apartment building, zoomed in on the front entrance. Caption, "Coming in soon." I stared at it a few seconds longer than the first. The shot was taken from across the street. I even recognized the lamppost on the corner, the busted one that flickers every few seconds. I swallowed and looked around the room. Everyone was still there, laughing, eating, passing someone's phone around. "Guys, anyone know who X111 is?" I asked. They barely looked up. "Probably Devin," someone muttered. "He always makes fake accounts." I didn't push it. Figured it had to be someone screwing with me. Maybe it was Devin. Maybe it was nothing. Still, I locked the front door, even though we were about to leave anyway. We walked to Josh's place around 10. He lived closer to the edge of the neighborhood, near the woods behind the old ball field. His house was louder, more people, drinks out on the dining table, front door half open most of the night. I forgot about the messages for a while. It was noisy and warm, and I found people to talk to, a few friends I hadn't seen since summer. It was around 11:15 when my phone buzzed again. Another snap from X111. My thumb hesitated over the notification. I opened it. It was a photo of my bedroom window, taken from outside. The glass reflected the door behind whoever took it. My bedroom door, slightly open. You could make out the hall light through the crack, but what made my fingers freeze was the shape in the reflection. A figure, just barely visible. The phone shook a bit in my hand. I turned away from the group and opened my camera, snapping a quick photo of the people around me. Sent it in the group chat with a casual caption, "Not alone BTW," like I was joking. But I wasn't. I wanted something with a timestamp, just in case. I opened the snap again and zoomed in. The reflection was clearer than I thought. There was a kid in the glass, standing in the hallway behind the camera, shorter than me. Hoodie pulled up, eyes dark, staring straight into the lens. I leaned against the kitchen counter and studied the photo again. The hallway light, the door angle, it all matched. And that kid, it was Dylan, Josh's little brother. He was always around, trailing Josh like a shadow, never talking much, never smiling. Everyone just called him Quiet Kid Dylan. Never caused problems, never made jokes. Just watched. I looked up and scanned the room. Josh was doing shots with 2 people I didn't know. Dylan wasn't in sight. I texted the group chat. "I know everything." 3 words. That's all I wrote. 5 seconds later, the snap stopped. Nothing came through after that. No one replied either. I stayed at Josh's until maybe 1 a.m., but didn't talk much after that. I left with 2 other guys, walked home in silence. I didn't check the windows. I didn't open Snapchat again that night. Just locked my door and went to bed with the hallway light on. Saturday was quiet. I stayed in. Cleaned my desk, played a few games, ignored the itch to check Snapchat. Nothing new came through. Not a single ping. Sunday was the same. No new snaps, no weird messages, no photos. It was like it never happened. I kept telling myself it was over. Just a prank that went a little too far. But Monday morning, when I walked into school, I saw Dylan down the hall by the lockers. He looked at me for a second, then looked away. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. He didn't say a word. Just kept walking. It didn't sit right. I wasn't scared anymore, not exactly. I felt something else. Like maybe he didn't expect me to figure it out. Maybe he thought he could stay invisible. And now he didn't know what to do. Third period passed, then lunch. I saw him again outside the cafeteria, standing alone by the water fountain. I could have ignored it, pretended like I never got the snaps. But I couldn't. I couldn't leave it like that. I waited until the final bell rang and followed him out of class. He walked fast, not running, just trying not to be noticed. I caught up to him by the lockers near the East Wing exit. "Hey," I said. He turned, stiff. Didn't speak. "Just talk. 5 minutes. That's all." He didn't nod. Didn't agree. But he walked with me down the hall anyway, slow and quiet. We stopped by the emergency exit near the back corridor. It was dim, the lights flickering slightly overhead. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. He stood there with his hands in his hoodie pocket, looking past me, not at me. Silent. Then I said, "I know it was you. At the house. Outside my window." He didn't move. Just blinked. His lips were pressed tight. "Why'd you do it?" He finally looked at me. His eyes were glossy. His lips trembled a little before he opened his mouth. "I messed up," he said, voice barely louder than a whisper. "After me and Lara broke up, I don't know. I got angry. I felt like no one saw me. I didn't say anything. Just stood there. I wanted to see what it felt like," he continued. "To scare someone. To be dangerous, I guess." His breathing got shallow. "I wasn't going to do anything. I swear. I just wanted to feel something different." He looked like a balloon with the air slowly leaking out. His hands were shaking now. I used Josh's old tablet. It still had Snapchat installed. I made the account and started sending stuff. I rode my bike. I was careful, stayed out of cameras. I even hid my bike behind that dumpster near your place. We sat on the bench near the back of the stadium. It was cold metal, and the autumn wind was picking up, brushing dry leaves around our feet. I let him talk. It wasn't my place to tell him how to feel, just to make sure this didn't go further. "You don't get it," I said finally, slow and direct. "If I had called someone, police, school, whatever, you'd be in real trouble right now." "I know," he said, barely audible. "You took photos from my window. You made me think I was being watched in my own home. That's not a prank, Dylan. That's a line." He rubbed his eyes. I know. I didn't think." "No one ever thinks," I cut in. "That's why people get hurt." We sat there a few more minutes. He was hunched over, shivering even though he had a hoodie on. I looked at him. Skinny kid, twitchy fingers, eyes stuck on the pavement. "Come on," I said. "We'll tell your parents together. You probably won't be able to do it alone." His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Okay," he said. "Okay." Later that evening, we were in Josh's living room. The lights were warm, the TV on mute, and their mom was packing cookies into a tin like it was any regular night. Josh sat on the floor with his back to the couch. Dylan was next to me on the far end. His mom turned to look at us. "Something happen?" she asked. Calm, not suspicious, just curious. Dylan looked at me. I gave a small nod. "I messed up," he started, voice barely holding steady. "I was the one sending those photos. I used your tablet. I made a fake account. I was..." trying to scare someone. She stopped moving, tin half full, hands resting on the lid. Their dad came in from the hallway, hearing just enough to pause. We talked for a while. Dylan didn't cry anymore, but he was close. He explained everything, where he rode, how he picked the times, even how he avoided being seen. His parents didn't shout. No slammed doors or flying objects. They just listened, asked questions, tried to understand why. Josh didn't speak until the very end. "I'll delete all his backup accounts," he said. "Every single one." Their parents decided to take away Dylan's gadgets until the end of the quarter. No screens, no apps. They said he needed time to think without distractions. I agreed. I deleted the chats, the photos, everything, except one screenshot. I kept it hidden in my drive. Not to shame him, not to hold it over his head, just as a reminder. We didn't need cops. We didn't need school involved. This was something we could handle, and I was glad it stayed that way. Monday smelled like textbooks and chewed gum stuffed into desk slots. It was just another day. Dylan passed me in the hall between second and third period. He gave a small nod. Not scared, not ashamed, just grateful. I nodded back. That was enough. The story about the mystery stalker stayed between the few of us who knew. Nobody else needed to find out. Nobody else needed to make it a joke, a rumor, a punchline. That night, I opened Snapchat and switched everything to private. No public posts, no location tagging, no random messages. I wasn't going to clean up after someone else's idea of a joke again. Sometimes punishment doesn't teach as much as conversation. This time, the lesson stuck without needing threats. Now I know how easy it is for a game to become fear, how quiet kids can carry loud thoughts, and how the line between a prank and a panic is thinner than it seems. You just have to speak up before it turns into a fall.